All right. Special Saturday night podcast. And this is going to be a very interesting podcast because tonight we're going to touch on a subject that a lot of black people like to talk about. Racism. And we're going to talk about it regarding the church and everything else. And what we want to do, we're going to talk about it in its rare form. I mean, like rare form. I really want to get down and dirty with this thing. Let's not hold anything back. If you guys got questions online, I'm going to be watching the chat as well. I want to respond to those questions as well because this is the time to just lay it out on the table. One time, and one time only. I'm not going to come back to this subject because it's not salvific to me. It's not going to save my soul. It's not going to bring me to heaven. But what's going to do though is going to put the pin. We want to put the pin in the what you call that.
Pinata.
In the pinata or in the little punch bag, in the little punch bin, the little tomato punch thing that we used to have back in the 80s. All right, we're going to put the pin in that. Remember that, Pastor Green?
Yeah, the pin cushion.
Pin cushion, yeah. Way back in the time. Look at these kids over here looking at each other like they don't know what they're talking about. All right. So yeah, I did say down and dirty, Mimi. I did say that. And we're going to do that. And I'm going to put some polls out there as well. Respond to the polls. This is going to be one of those podcasts where we're going to let our hair down and talk about some things, all right?
People ought to be respectful.
And we want to be that's the other part. We want people to be very respectful, okay? Remember, that's the problem with this subject. This subject is like a triggered subject, and that's the reason why we don't get ourselves involved with it. But we're going to talk about it, all right? All right, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer before we get into it. Father God, as we're about to have a discussion, Lord, on this very sensitive subject on racism, Father, we pray, oh God, that you would lead us, let your Holy Spirit lead us. We know it's going to be, it may get hairy, and that's sensitive of the subject. That's the because of the sensitivity of the subject. But we just pray, oh Lord, that you would lead us and guide us, Lord. Let our words be still coming from you. We ask in Jesus' name, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So we got a crew out here today. It's a little bit different. As I promised you, we have 2 Oakwood students, and at their young age, youth, they got, they can tell a lot of things because they're on the ground. They see things happening all the time, and they also, they hear a lot of things, and I want to hear from them what's really real to them, right? And of course, we got Jamal and Pastor Green. We're all here, and one of these guys, and the younger guy back, not in the white shirt but the black shirt, that is my son. For those of you who did not know my son, that is my son. I'm proud to say that because I have a good son. So if you see him, Elliot, raise your hand. That's my boy right there. Yeah, he can see you. They can see you out. Everybody can see you on camera. If you can see yourself, they can see you.
I can't see myself.
That's too bad because I'm looking at myself. There we go. Everybody can see everybody now. All right. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because last week, was it last week? A week before last?
A couple weeks ago, I believe.
Week before last. Dr. Umar Johnson went to Oakwood at Oakwood University. I know that Dr. Johnson is a race hustler, a race baiter, and also, in other words, he's also a racist. Anytime you demonize another race or creed, or anytime you demonize a person for their race or creed, it says that you are a racist. That's a definition of racism. And I was not, let me put it this way, I was very disappointed in Dr. Umar Johnson being at Oakwood because the impressionable minds of those young students are easily grabbed, or what they call they're easily it's easy to control because of their impressionable minds. Okay, I feel that him being there really had most of the control over the students because we did not set the narrative. He did. And because he set the narrative, to me, he gained the control. Okay? I think racism is subjective to whom they feel is in it at that moment. That's just me. Okay? I believe that God has given us the tools on how to deal with racism. He has given us the tool on how to deal with racism. And I think the number one tool on dealing with racism is how we interact with each other, whether our skin colors are different. But what I've been noticing is lately is that we have gone to this pigmentation, skin color ideology. That's where we're going. And I feel that's very dangerous in the times that we're living in these very last days, that we are now looking to see how we can beat back racism versus how we can help pull each other up, even within our own community, right? And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Okay? So I want to get some thoughts, and I want to get, I'm going to ask these young men, and I know that my son was there, Elliot. What was your thought or feeling with Dr. Umar? Or what did you see, I should say, because I know you didn't go to the program, but what did you see during that time, or what was it that was happening before and after Dr. Umar?
So I want to preface it by saying that I do agree that the word racism is subjective, because I feel like the word has lost its meaning. Mm-hmm. The true definition is discrimination against a race, right? So with that being the case, I feel like a lot of people, when they see Dr. Umar, they don't really know, they don't really see him as like a actual figure for education to be educated by when you see him on social media. A lot of the times you see him on social media, they're bits or memes made of him talking about his coined phrase, black women forever, white men, snow bunnies never, right?
Black queens
forever, yeah. Snow bunnies never, right? But with that being the case, it's shown that there's a lot of racist tendencies in what he's saying, even to the point where he doesn't like interracial relationships, for reasons he would be proud to tell you. So when we saw that he was coming, there were some flyers that he had put out, and there were a few people on the campus, and very few people on the campus that were very concerned by what he put out. And the first flyer was basically saying, Leos are, let me just find it. Leos are exalted in Aries, Ojan on the warpath, the rise of Ifatunde, Sun enters Aries, Thursday, March 20th.
Wait, what?
So this is the post that he had put out.
Can you text that to me?
Yeah, let me send it to you. Copy the link.
Is he a Leo?
So I don't know, but basically this is the post that he had put out before the post saying that he was coming to Oakwood. He was already coming to Huntsville, but we had somebody, I'm not going to say his name, but we had somebody see that, and he then invited him to come to Oakwood because he thought that he thought he was funny. He's been to one of his events before because of the bits. The bits are funny, so they drive you to, his thing. And then he'll speak about how he truly feels about the black race, right? This is the next post. I'm gonna send it to you, Dad. The one saying that he's coming to Oakwood. Right. So a few of us saw that, and we were not happy about what we saw because we know that a lot of the people at Oakwood are not on a strong foundation. And if you're not standing on anything, you will fall for everything. So if I can get a bunch of people in a room and make them laugh, you know, eventually I can say whatever I want because I have you so full of joy, you know, and he's a social engineer and I want to be a social engineer. So I kind of already know what kind of mind tricks are being played here and, you know, what he's playing, what kind of heartstrings he's playing on. And because I know the things that he stands for and the God that he worships is not the same God that we worship. And he talks about it all the time. A lot of the time he talks about your ancestors, and we know that you cannot speak to your ancestors. They are dead. The Bible talks about the dead and how the dead know nothing and they can't do anything on earth. They take part of nothing. They take part in nothing under the sun. Ecclesiastes 9:5 or 9:6, I think. But he talks about talking to your ancestors and being empowered by these people who are supposedly dead, which are really demons. And when we hear these things, it's like, okay, we know that you worship somebody who we don't believe in, meaning that you are being moved by demons, which you are bringing onto this campus by just being here. So we didn't like that. That was how it was before. I know in my spirit, I prayed about it. I already knew I wasn't going because it was not for me to be there, right? But people kept asking me, "Oh, are you going? Oh, are you going?" And I'd say no, and they'd be like, "Why are you not going? It's gonna be fun." Those kind of things aren't fun to me because I know how I feel in my spirit when I see someone speaking blasphemy from a stage and everyone loving it, and you can anticipate that everybody's gonna love it. So the aftermath, basically, there were, like I said, a select few people who did not like what he was saying. And one of the guys, when he saw that he was coming, he was texting all of the like ministry group chats and stuff like that. And he was going off. He didn't say any cuss words or anything like that, but he was very, very outraged by what was happening, by what we were allowing on the campus. And people were basically saying, "Hey, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think the way you're going about it is right. You're very," like, he was very aggressive in his approach. Da 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 da. In my mind, we are inviting somebody who is who worships demons on the campus to speak about the Black struggle, right? And for me, being educated on the Black struggle can be by anybody, not someone who worships another God, right? So that's similar to the way he felt. And basically, I was just saying, like, I don't think it's that big of a deal the way he's reacting, because we are allowing somebody to come and speak on this topic, and we know how. If you've seen his stuff, you know how it goes. But yeah, basically when he walks in, I'll just describe what happened. He walks in, he says his coin phrase. The first thing he says, well, he walks in and he gets a standing ovation, which is already for me out of this world, because why are we exalting someone like this, or someone anyway, another human being? Why are we exalting them to a pedestal where if they walk out, you know, we're already giving them a standing ovation and we haven't even heard what he has to say? But the first thing he says is Black women forever, and
Black queens
forever. And the entire room stands up and finishes the coin phrase. And if you want to get somebody, if you want to get an entire room standing up, all you have to do is say what they want to hear.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what he did. It's the first thing he did. Black queens forever. Everybody stood up screaming, like they were in love. They were enthralled with what he was saying, right? So eventually there was somebody who got up. He stood up and was screaming from the what did I say, audience?
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically saying that everything you're saying is contradictory to the word of God. And he basically went down the list of why it's contradictory. He was saying like, there were people who were mixed in the Bible, and there were people who like, basically their lineage came from two different areas, right? And if that doesn't make them black, then does that make them weak and stuff like that? Or you call Jesus black, but he was born here and this is his family and this is his lineage, da 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 da. And it got to the point where they took him out of the room because they felt like he was being too aggressive, right? So he took to Instagram Live and he had a 17-minute live, and he was basically just saying like, look, and he was giving scripture too, and he was upset. He was very hot about what was going on, because it's like, you can give somebody who worships demons the space to talk on a Christian campus, but somebody who has Christian beliefs can't give his ideas of what he's saying to this person, you know, who speaks completely contradictory to the word of God. So that was like the first thing where it was like, okay, this is getting, you know, this is it's a little weird, you know. The second thing is that I had a couple friends who were preaching outside after all of it, and basically what they were saying is that there were people breaking into Moran Hall to go see Dr. Umar Johnson. There's a cap on how many people can be in the building. So when people were being stopped from being able to come in, people were climbing through the windows, breaking it.
Wait a minute.
They broke into the windows of the basement of Moran Hall and were climbing in through the windows.
What?
Yeah. So, it can just show you like what kind of spiritual effect was really had on these students. So my friends, they were out there preaching after the event outside, because they felt like, you know, something need to be said, right? Because everything that he's saying is contradictory to the word of God. So they were basically saying like, yeah, we were preaching and we were preaching hard, but we were still preaching from a place of love, right? And we gave people space to talk, and people, you know, would walk away. People didn't like what we were saying, or they didn't like the fact that we were saying something after he had just said something, because they were like, oh, you guys aren't being respectful to what he was saying, right? And then they took to the Fizz. It's an anonymous app, right? And they were saying, oh, the Theo majors were acting up tonight. Like, why can't you just be respectful about the way that he thinks? Oh, it's a new perspective. In my opinion, I don't need a new perspective. I have the word of God. I don't see why we need a new perspective. You know, we have it all laid out for us, right? So the last thing that hit the nail on the head for me about this whole aftermath was my friend. My friend is from Venezuela, and she's here for school, and she got caught up in a conversation, and there were many conversations about Dr. Umar and the effect that he had on his campus. But they got caught up in a conversation, and basically it was a group of people, and she was the only one who wasn't black. And somebody was basically saying, oh, I don't feel like black people should be marrying outside of their race. Like they shouldn't be marrying white people. That was like the first thing she said, right? And everybody was kind of like, I mean, you know, like, do what you want. You know, as an individual, you can do what you want. And basically she was saying like, nah, like, it kind of weakens, like, and in my mind, I'm like, weakens? What are you talking about? Like, do you feel stronger because you know that you're with another black person? But my friend basically was like, oh, because she had the same conversation with her boss, but she was like, oh, you know, what about Latino people? And she was like, no, I feel the same way. Like, black people should not be marrying Latino people, da 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 da. And it was like, well, what's giving you this confidence, you know, that you've never said this before? Nobody knew you felt this way. You know, like, this was the day after Dr. Umar had spoken. So it's just like, you know, what are we talking about? Like, what is this, you know, empowered feeling that you have, that you feel as if like now all of a sudden, well, maybe black people shouldn't be doing this. Maybe black people should be, like, why are we marrying outside of our race? Like,
Right.
this is, but that's what I felt about the, before and after of just this whole situation.
All right. I appreciate that rundown, man, because that kind of sets the stage right now for, this conversation. Jamal, can you hear us?
Yep.
Or
Can
you
you hear me?
just stuck thinking about what you just heard?
Man, my mind, 1,000 things are going through my mind right now. I was reading some of the comments as well. First off, I want to say good evening, everyone. Dr. O did not invite, for clarification for the comments, he did not invite Dr. Umar Johnson. It was the students that invited Dr. Umar Johnson. I will say it again, it was not Dr. O. It was the students. What's the name of it, Elliot? The students that invited him. What's the name of the group?
USM.
Oh, USM. Yeah,
United. Yeah.
Dr. O did not invite him. He was asked to be a moderator
Yes.
because the student body thinks that the way his teaching is kind of like, they think the way that Dr. O's teaching is different than everyone of the other theology teachers. So they were basically saying like, oh, well, we feel as if like they have similar ways of speaking. So let's have Dr. O be the moderator. That's kind of what was like in the mind of the student that invited him. So like Dr. O he was kind of set up in a way. I think there was just a little bit of research that needed to be done before this happened, because the students, people like me, there were students there that knew, okay, we don't need Dr. Umar Johnson at Oakwood University.
So let me just set the record straight here. This is not a Dr. O discussion.
Yeah.
I make that right 100%. It's not a Dr. O discussion. So for those of you in the chat trying to figure out a way to make this become a Dr. O discussion, it's not. And this is not about Dr. O. This is about the what happened at Oakwood's campus and how we're gonna, discuss this whole racism thing in our churches and our schools. All right? Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this about Dr. Umar Johnson. We need to understand the difference between racism and prejudice. We always think because Dr. Umar Johnson is not a racist; he's prejudiced.
Nah, he's a racist dude.
Hold on.
Go ahead, though.
Racism. This is the difference. Racism is a form of prejudice that is based on a race, not one person. It's a race of people, and often involves the belief that one race is superior to another. Racism goes beyond individual, which he is an individual, attitudes, and encompasses systematic discrimination and oppression, where one racial group, not a person, but a group, holds power and privileges over others. It can manifest in individual action, institutional policies, and cultural practices. That's what racism is. Now, somebody who's prejudiced, this was somebody who's prejudiced, which he is. Now he's trying to start if you ask me, a racial war, and I'll get to that in a minute. Prejudice refers to a preconceived opinion, often negative, about a group of people based on generalization or stereotype rather than individual experience. It is a attitude or feeling, not necessarily an action. Prejudice can be directed towards a various group based on race, religion, gender, etc. And that's why I said Dr. Umar Johnson is prejudiced, because today we're not seeing, like in the past, back in the 60s, that was racism without people dealt with segregation and all that. That was racist because that was systematic, where the blacks couldn't use the white fountain or the blacks had to go to the back of the bus. That's racism. Not That's not prejudice. Prejudice is a person who hates a different group, whether it's black, white, yellow, pink, whatever, for whatever reason. That's what prejudice is. Let's just clarify that. That man was sent to Oakwood by the devil himself. And I believe that. Because what that man bought, and I said this in time chat, me and Light had numerous conversations on this thing. I believe that Dr. Umar Johnson, and nobody checked it. Nobody checked it. That brother was talking about spiritualism, talking about our ancestors. That should have been checked at our university. That brother got up there and was talking about he said to one of the Oakwood students that was sitting right next to him, he said to him, brother, I hope you're not dibbling and dabbling in that white milk. That's fornication. And then he talks about that black men shouldn't be swimming in that milk, and that stuff right there should not. That man should have been thrown out of that building. But again, we were told in the last days, people are going to compromise, man. Our institutions are going to compromise. And then we had our leaders, the president or the former president, and some of his constituents sitting right in front and center. Nobody checked none of this stuff. My problem, when I saw that video, my problem was when they booed Ellen G. White. That was my problem. The students, when the Ellen White quote was read by Dr. O and they booed, that was my problem right there. But I'm saying, I'll come back to that in a minute. Go ahead, Larry.
No, I was saying this, you just mentioned, you really just laid out what racism is. And that's why I was saying he's a racist. He believes the black people are superior.
Oh, okay.
You see, that's what you just finished reading. So that's why I said he is, because basically what he said was when he talked about black Jesus and white Jesus.
That was another one.
That was it. That's where he was. He says if God is white, then the white man is divine. So God is not white. Jesus is black. So Jesus, meaning that
not black, not white, or Jesus is not black.
We don't know that. We have no clue.
Let me say something.
Well, the Bible said his feet was bronze.
That's not the color. I'm sorry.
Look,
and they said Jesus was a Jew, and we look at Jews today.
This is gonna cause a problem.
Dark skin, the Indian complexion, red complexion, whatever. But we don't know.
We don't know. We have no. That's my point. My point. We don't know. Go ahead, Elliot.
So after he spoke at Oakwood and was saying that Jesus was black and all of this stuff, he had just recently dropped a podcast where he was basically saying that black people shouldn't be pretty much tied to any religion, not Christianity, not Buddhism, not Judaism, not anything, any of the denominations or anything. He was saying that being black is the most divine thing that you can be, like the most divine group that you could be a part of. So it just goes to show that he plays on what needs to be played on.
Right. He for the moment, that's what he does, right? And I'm gonna get Pastor Green in here. For the moment, that's what he does. But it's not all about Dr. Umar. This was just the foundation of it. Okay? This is just the foundation of it. The thing about it is, what I'm looking at in these last days, we have a different message now than we did 35 years ago, 45 years ago, 100 years ago. Our message is different. The message 100 years ago was the same, the third angel's message. However, now that's more prevalent to bring people into God's kingdom. That's the message that we're supposed to be giving, especially to these young folks at a Christian Adventist private institute. But if we're not giving that message and we're going to give another message, now we have to be much more careful, because all we did was we caused more of a divide. And here's my issue with this whole race thing and black thing. We cause more of a divide trying to fix what we think we're fixing. We're not really fixing anything. Again, I have not seen a fix for racism since I've learned about it in the Bible. The story of Miriam, Zipporah, and Moses. That's the story. I have not seen any fix since then. If somebody can tell me, shoot me a letter, point me in the right direction where it was fixed. Let me tell you how God dealt with the situation. First of all, God put Miriam out and gave her leprosy for 1 week for the stuff that she was talking. Okay? She wanted to usurp her brother. She used the issue of race and color to go against his wife. Put her out. 1 week. Leprosy. God doesn't play with that. Because you see, as he told Miriam and her brother, I speak to Moses face to face. Everybody else get dreams and vision, but Moses and I have a real relationship. You're going to respect him. You're going to respect his wife. So I see things a whole lot differently when it comes to this race thing. Racism, real. I know it's there because I dealt with it. Not for just 1 week, 1 day. I dealt with it for 2 years straight. And it taught me lessons. Way down in Texas, when Texas was not the same way it was as it was before. I was living in Austin, Texas, and I was dealing with it then. When they would send me to these very rural towns, when they would call the cops on me, and this is my manager, my supervisor would deliberately call his racist police officers to come check me. Taught me a lesson, though. I'm going to go on with this. I'm not going to put all that story out there right now. I'm going to leave it hanging for a little bit. Pastor Green.
You know, you were just talking about Zipporah, Moses' wife, and Miriam, you know, when she was speaking ill against, you know, Zipporah, you know, the daughter of Jethro,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's Moses' father-in-law. He was a Midianite. Zipporah was a Midianite.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about Gideon, Gideon was the one that had to deal with the Midianites when I think the Bible says that there was 125,000. And they were like the sand of the sea. They were like grasshoppers. And they would come in and they would, right around harvest time, and take away all the crops. So being that the Midianites was a black people have been raising sand for a long, long time.
Yep.
You know, so we look at, you know, what the white man is doing, and we get mad at that. But you can just go back in history and see that, you know, a lot of this racism, you know, is not about color. It's about power. You know, if you want to remain in power, you have to put in check the people that seems to be rising up. If you find a group that's rising up, you got to find a way to slow them down. I mean, I grew up in a very racist area. Buffalo and Niagara Falls, in that area, the mafia is very, very strong. A matter of fact, the Niagara movement is the beginnings of the NAACP. You know, the NAACP did not necessarily come together as an organization in Niagara Falls, but it eventually moved to New York City, and then you had the NAACP. But even with the NAACP, for years and years and years, it was always controlled by Jewish people. Jewish people sort of led out with the NAACP. And so racism is more so about power. And when you consider what is happening over there in Africa, and you're talking about Umar Johnson is looking at what is happening in Africa. He's looking at the colonial powers and how they just carved up Africa. You're a king, you're a king, you're a king. Because if you can keep smaller provinces, you can easily control them. And even though, sometimes you just can't put your hand on the culprit. But what happened with the Tutsis and the Hutus, it was the Belgians. The Belgians, they elevated the Tutsis, you know, to lord over the Hutus. And that caused many, many people to lose their life. Even in Niagara Falls, I saw what happened. And anytime you get a group that's beginning to rise up and they're becoming a little bit more powerful, you got to find a way to slow them down. You got to bring in Planned Parenthood. You got to bring in the liquor stores. You got to bring in, pump the drugs into the area. You got to pump the guns, just like over there in the Bronx. You know, they had a tractor trailer that just backed up in there. The guy went in supposedly to a restaurant, a flimsy little lock on the back of an 18-wheeler. They emptied that entire tractor trailer load of semi-automatic weapons in the Bronx. Now, stuff like that doesn't happen by chance. Those things happen by design. It is designed to retard a people, to slow them down. Umar Johnson, he can see the bigger picture. He sees what's going on. And he's saying, like Marcus Garvey, you know, there is racism. How do you deal with the racism? How do you get this monkey off your back that's doing everything and using their arsenal of weapons in order to slow you down so that they can control you? You know, even like we talk about the word woke. I mean, the establishment took the word woke, a word that goes all the way back to the time of Marcus Garvey. It was a word that was used to tell Black folks, you need to wake up. You are sleeping. You need to realize the powers that are manipulating, pitting one group against another group. You know, and that's why I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier, Larry, about Whitney Phipps, when he had a panel discussion at Oakwood some time ago. Mm-hmm. And this discussion came up, and Whitney said that when people from the Caribbean, when they come over to the United States, before they get here, their parents home them. You know, if you want to move forward, do not affiliate yourself with the indigenous Black people in the United States, because that will hinder your growth. It'll hinder your ability to move forward. And so, you know, the powers that be, they use situations like that. Even when you have a company and you have the indigenous Black person and you have those from the Caribbean, then they will elevate the ones from the Caribbean, make that person the boss over the other one. And after you see this for a period of time, after a while, you start hating on your Black brother or your Black sister, not even realizing why you hate them. But you're being manipulated, that the hatred, the discontent, all of that is orchestrated in order to remain on the top. As long as I can keep your foot on the guy at the bottom, then I'm up, as long as I can keep him down. And as long as Black people are not woke, they will always fall prey to the various tactics that are being used. You know, I think that Omar was saying that, you know, Black people cannot be racist because we do not have power. We don't have the power that they have. So you don't have the power to really subjugate them. And so I think that's why he was equating a racist as a person that have power over another person or over another group of people. So, I mean, it's frustrating. Umar Johnson is a Pan-African. You have a lot of people that agree with his ideology and what he stands for. That's why when he walked on the stage, people just went crazy. Young people are not stupid. They know what's going on all over the world. They know what's happening over there in Africa. It's been going on for a long, long time. And they're saying perhaps Umar is the last rebelling, radical, resolute revolutionary on earth. So we need to get behind him, because all of the other leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers, they killed them. They killed the leaders. And now you got one that is rising up. The only problem is Umar Johnson he's not balanced in his attitude when it comes to, you know, white versus Black. You know, I mean, he's talking about the bunnies, are you a bunny hopper? Well, bunnies are not prejudiced. A white bunny doesn't care if it's a Black bunny. He's going to hop wherever his instincts carry him to hop, you know, because they don't deal with racism, but for some reason, we got this evil that have permeated us, whether we're Black or whether you're white, and even trying to make Jesus, I mean, God is above race.
And that's the reason why we need to get above it. So that's the reason why God wants us to climb higher, right? Because here is where it matters. Pastor Green, you just mentioned a few things. Number one, what you just mentioned earlier was something called reverse racism. It's easy for me as a black person to say black people can't be racist because we don't have power. But wait a minute now. Power is that's relative, right? That's relative. At any given time, you can have power. You can have power over the system that you're in, that you've created. Okay, I've seen black people who were more racist to me in a myriad of ways. Right? Racism is about having power in your own system that you've created. So if a person that lives the next door to me is black and they treat me in such a way that they feel that they're superior over me because of maybe their education, maybe because of the money that they have, they feel that they have more power over me, they will treat me as such. Okay, so it's not just about the color of a person's skin that grants them the power to have to be over a person. It's the mentality as well. It's all relative. And that's the thing I'm trying to show people. This all relative. First of all, racism is a byproduct of sin. That's the first thing. It's not like sin and then there's racism outside of sin. Racism is a byproduct of sin used by Satan to cause division. That's what that is. Okay? So we can't play, we got to play very smart here and understand who the enemy is. The enemy is not the white man. The enemy is not the yellow man. The enemy is not the red man. The enemy is Satan. And if we can see it from that perspective, then all of a sudden we start dealing with racism a whole lot different. Racism can be only, let me put it this way, contained, not fixed, but contained. And it only can be contained by how God has given to us in his word. If you want to be called a disciple, you must love your brethren. That's what the Beatitudes are for. When they hate you and persecute you, you still got to love them. That's what that's for. Without that, then we are missing the mark. And this is why I'm trying to tell people, let's pause for a minute. Let's get to this thing called woke. I'm coming to you.
I need to add something, though, to what you're saying, because I don't want it to get misconstrued.
To what I'm saying?
Yeah. To your examples, because your examples can be deemed as classist.
Yeah, classism, of course.
Not necessarily racist.
Right.
So what I wanted to say is, like, an example of that having power in your own system would be if you are a basketball coach as a black man and you have white players and black players, but instead of playing the white players, you put the black players in there.
Because he has power at that moment. Right.
So that's very
good.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that in.
Good clarification. Right. But it's all about what you're controlling in that area at that moment, right? Because he's the coach. He has control.
Right.
Right. So that's the whole point. The point I'm trying to make is we as a people, let me get to this woke thing. Pastor Green, you said woke started with...
woke was just an acronym that was used back during the early 30s.
30s, right. With Marcus Garvey. Yeah. Right. Now, that was an acronym, though. Okay? The definition then is a whole lot different now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the definition then of being woke in terms of a wake up, I think it was awake on something. I can't remember what that acronym was, but it was an acronym to show that you have to be awake to the situations going on around you. And not just that, because Marcus Garvey was an activist, not just for black people, but for Caribbean people. He was an activist for a lot of different things. And he lived in England. Okay. And he dealt with snow bunnies. That's just the truth. The man dealt with snow bunnies. If that's what Dr. Umar Johnson was talking about, white people, okay, white ladies or white people or whatever have you. There are plenty black men who talk about this race issue and they're married to white people. Vice versa. Okay?
My nephew was half white.
That's the whole point, Jamal. Jamal, we are so intertwined with all of this stuff, right? We're interconnected with a lot of different things. And then we talk about stuff. We talk about this like, it's like I said, we like to talk about it. You know why? I'm getting back to this woke thing. I'm not finished yet. You know why? Because it makes us feel that being a victim, being in this victim mentality, it works. There's perks, right? DEI came out of all of this. Well, you know what? We're going to push them out first. Let's see how we can make money on the black folks. This wasn't about black people. It didn't help black people. I'm coming. This whole woke situation started being prevalent after George Floyd.
Well, what is wrong with diversity?
Let me tell you something. There's two different types of diversity. Two different types. One.
Well, Larry, before you go into that, can I just elaborate what you just said?
Go ahead.
Because I'm the darkest, and I got 3 other brothers. I'm the darkest.
You are the darkest of your brothers.
All my brothers. My oldest brother, you think he's Puerto Rican? He got
correct
hair and everything. You met my older brother, Larry.
Yes.
My mother, my great grandfather was German, so I have white in my family. Why do you think light skinned people came about? Whether they listen. Let me just say this. I don't even want to go that deep. For those who want to follow Dr. Umar Johnson, you do what you feel. But I'm gonna say this about Dr. Umar Johnson. He want to say black queens forever, white bunnies never. And everybody want to go crazy. But this is the same brother who talk about black queens forever. We want to put a ring on a black woman's. He got 3 baby mamas and won't marry none of them.
And don't take care of his kids either.
He's a polygamist.
And so how you gonna get somebody like this to try to move a whole race into a direction of having our own? Why would we follow this brother? Why would we follow a brother like this?
Well, I think that
black queens forever, white bunnies never. But this brother won't even put a wedding ring on a black woman. Now, come on, man.
He's shooting himself. He's shooting himself in the foot. He's shooting himself in the foot because, I mean, everything about Umar Johnson is not bad. Everything that he talks about is not bad. A lot of what he talks about is very educational. I used to follow Umar Johnson, but then, kind of like Dave Chappelle, I can only tolerate so much of Dave Chappelle. As Elliot was saying that, laughter and humor is a technique that Umar mastered in order to get knowledge in people's head. Dave Chappelle mastered that.
Yeah.
He can say things that the average person cannot, especially when it comes to the alphabet community, when it comes to the transgenders. He can get truth across without getting his head cut off. So and Umar has mastered that to a degree as well. There's a lot of things I don't agree. Sometimes it's hard for me listening to Umar. It's hard for me listening to Dave Chappelle. But like me, my thing is, as a theologian, I will eat the fish and I'll spit out the bones. The only problem is if you're a leader and you bring somebody in through association, it may be a young person that may try to do what you're doing and they will eat the fish and get choked on the bones. That's the problem. Because they don't have the knowledge that you have accumulated over the years where you can see the bigger picture. A lot of young people, they're trying to see the bigger picture, but sometimes before they can see the bigger picture, they get choked on the bones.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I wanna just go ahead and elaborate more because you asked me a question, Pastor Green, on DEI. And I was going to say this.
Well, not just the D, but the
E and the I. Yes, let's go ahead and elaborate on those 3 areas. One, if there's any diversity, God is the leader of all diversity. Okay? I mean, God made everything with diversity in mind. Look at us. This is the reason why we have this conversation right now, because we're diverse. The main reason why we're having this conversation, okay? The flowers don't get mad at each other. The roses don't fight each other. They don't have racism against yellow and red and all these other things. They don't have color discrimination, but there's a plethora of different types of roses. That's diversity, okay? And they're all different one from another. They're different types of oranges, right? Not every orange come with an orange cover. There are green oranges, there are red oranges, all types of different types of oranges, apples, right? That's what you call diversity. Okay? Now, let's talk about the human race. We are diverse one from another. I mean, not even the fingerprints on our hands are the same. We don't all think the same. We're not a monolithic group of people. We're all different in our own regard. And that's the beauty of it. That's what makes us diverse from each other.
Unique.
And unique, right? Here's where it becomes a bigger picture. Equity. What does the Bible say about equity? In Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 49, where he says truth is tossed into the streets and equity cannot enter. Okay? When you look at it from that perspective, equity is just what this is. When Adam was created, God made Eve out of his rib. Eve was equal to Adam in a sense that her mind and everything was all equal. They were all on the same level. The only thing that Adam had over her was that he was made before her and he was head of the castle.
Yep.
Okay, he's head. That's all that it was. But she was equal to him until she lost that in Genesis chapter 3. God made her lower than the man. Now, still equal in a sense, but now she's lower than him. Okay, because of sin. Now, let's get this here. If I'm sitting in a row with people, okay, black, white, yellow, red, who doesn't make a difference. We all have the same. We're all getting paid the same. But the only thing different about us is that I may have a different title, and my title might be a little bit higher than the other person. But we're all sitting in the same row. We're all getting paid the same thing. We're all doing the same work. We're all happy about what we're doing. That's equity. That is equity. We're putting in the same. The only thing that's different about me is that, hey, this guy has a supervisor on his name, but he's working just as hard as everybody else.
That sounds like socialism.
It sounds like it, but that's what they're giving to you. That's what they're saying. Hey, we want people to be equal on this equal basis, right? Let's take from the supervisor guy and make sure that everybody's getting paid the same.
That doesn't work.
That's the equity that they're talking about. That's not the equity that God has given us.
That's what the Roman Catholic Church want to give us.
That's socialism.
Yeah.
Okay? Inclusion. We're all included. We're included because it's all relative. I'm not going to include Elliot into everything that I do. I might not include you into everything that I do. We talked about it earlier, right, Elliot? Right? But the point is, we inclusion is not about being you have to accept what we do. That's the inclusion that the world is giving us. This inclusion of, well, the LGBTQ this, the transgender this, and we want everybody to be inclusive. Inclusive to what? To acceptance of what you're doing? That's what the world's giving to us. God has included us into his fold, into his rest. That's inclusion, right?
What is the rudiment of the term DEI? Who started it? Who coined that phrase DEI? That's what I would like to know.
Well, again,
I mean, did it come from the LGBT,
yes,
the alphabet community, or did it come from a group of black people saying, "Hey,
no, not a group of black people. We end up jumping on as black people. We can jump on the bandwagon because we feel it benefits us." Okay. That's what we did.
That's what messed us up.
That's what we did. But DEI did not benefit anybody. But I'm going to tell you who it benefited. But the white woman. Okay? That's who it really benefited. Why? Because it pushed women to the forefront. That was the whole point of this. And again, anytime.
And also the alphabet community. Pushed them forward too.
I'm gonna get to that. But anytime you see the woman being pushed to the forefront, know this is coming from Satan. No, it's coming from Satan, because Satan only deals with Satan deals with the woman. God deals with the man. This is historical all the way through. God will specially deal with the woman when he wants to speak to a woman. But when you see in Bible history, all the way through history, God directs his communication to whom? The man. The man communicates to the woman. This is hierarchical from the beginning of time. When you see Satan did what he did at the tree with the woman, he has kept that up. And anytime you see the woman being elevated, because this is what Genesis chapter 3:15 has been saying, you're going to want to usurp. You're going to want to come above the man. And you see this thing is happening. You know this is not from Christ himself. So yes, what you're looking at here is this. You see a push for the woman, and then DEI comes in. DEI really plays on the woman. DEI took the man and put him to the background. There's nothing for DEI for the man. A black man can go to a white Fortune 500 company, look for the same job that any other woman is looking for, and that same black man will be put to the backside. You know why? Because he doesn't have the three stones, the three infinity stones that I keep talking about. The three infinity stones of woke: black, woman, gender. That's it. Black, woman, make it be a transgender. Black, woman, gay. Those are the infinity stones of woke. And you need to have those to go up to the ladder. And that's what DEI is all about.
Yeah, it's just that, a lot of these terms that pop up when you consider, what they are doing, and they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's good, in the whole concept. Racism does exist. Institutional racism is a reality. I mean, you can try to sweep it under the rug if you want to, but it exists. But then when you throw out DEI, you throw out woke, you throw out CRT, then you're throwing out affirmative action. The reason why affirmative action would not be necessary if it wasn't for sin, if it wasn't for one group trying to lord over another group. And so checks and balances are put in for the purpose of trying to give, the underdog at least a running chance in this.
Who's the underdog?
Well, it's like I said, you got to go all the way back, to Genesis, not Genesis, but Exodus chapter 1, verses 1 to 12. Who was the underdog during the time of Pharaoh? Who was the underdog?
But that was
Who was the underdog?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So the children of Israel were prophesied by God to Abraham that this was going to happen to them, really to show who God is. Okay, so I can't really say that they're the underdogs.
I don't know if it's necessary to show who God is. It's just that God is omniscient. He knows the end from the beginning. Right. He knows what's going to happen.
But how are we calling them underdogs? Because they lived in Goshen. Yes, they worked hard. Yes, they had to make mortar out of clay. Yeah, they had to make bricks out of mortar. Yeah, we understand that. But the point I'm trying to make is this. They still came from, they were prophesied as a people. They were already a legend already. By Abraham, through Abraham. So yes, we understand that, these people are going to be dealing with certain things. And they went through 400 years, but God did that on purpose to show who he was. So here it is. We still, okay, you know what? Slavery happened way back then. But today, we're not underdogs anymore. We're not. A black man was a president.
Yeah.
How far can you go in America?
Obama was a puppet.
Okay, forget the puppet. The black man still went up there.
I know,
okay?
But I mean, that was the best strategy that could ever be pulled because black folks lowered their guard. Prior to Obama, black folks stood up. All of this business of same-sex marriage, because they put a black person in there.
Now
somebody like a Bush would have never been able to pull that off.
Now you're picking up what I'm putting down, Pastor Green. You're picking up what I'm putting down. What I'm saying to you is this. When you have the black man reach to that high level, whether they put him there or not, what does that have to say now to us? How much more can we claim to be victims?
I don't see.
And underdogs. We can't. They're black billionaires. Michael Jordan doesn't get talked about a lot. Why?
Because he want to keep his money.
And he's been smart though. He says my sneakers. One more point there, Jamal. I'm coming to you. He says my sneakers. The Republicans buy my sneakers too. The man's smart. You know why? Green is the color that he believes in.
And Elvis Presley too. He says, all I want them to do is to buy my blues and
That's it.
polish my shoes.
But okay, so again, why can't we think the same way Michael Jordan's thinking? Because you see, Michael Jordan doesn't play the victim card. Michael Jordan knows he's not a victim. Matter of fact, he played all of them. He literally played everybody. Because what he did was become the best on the basketball court, and then all of a sudden he fades away into the sunset. Even when they made a documentary on him, he still told the truth. He said, "Hey, yo, you know what? I'm still I'm still the best."
Yeah.
Buy my documentary and make me more of a billionaire. Again,
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey. Nobody talks about her. All of a sudden, she's not suffering for nobody.
Another puppet.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Jamal.
First, I want to say this is, we have more black billionaires today than ever before. When you say we're underdogs, it's only 13% of us. Like we talked about this.
Yeah.
13% of the blacks make up the population. 13%. That's not a lot.
Nope.
That's not a lot. With 13%. Did you hear what I just said? 13. Second, I'm going to say this. Tyler Perry opened the first black studio now, I'm not for Hollywood and none of that. But I'm saying this because this is how far we've come.
Right.
Like Larry said, a black president. You try putting a black president in the 60s, you'd have been assassinated on day one.
You know how many times you tried?
I don't see Obama as being black. He did absolutely nothing for black people when he was in office. It's not about color. It's about using him as a tool to get certain legislation passed and put a group of people asleep because they thought we have arrived.
But the point
we got our man in office.
The point
and
is
they
he
went
was black,
to sleep.
though. That's the point. He was black. The point that Jamal's trying to make, Pastor Green, is that
my point.
But
go ahead, Jamal.
Make your point, Joey. Make your point, Jay.
I'm trying my best to understand. I just like when you mention like Obama, when you mention Oprah Winfrey, I see them as puppets.
If I had to say,
I don't see them as real leaders.
If I had to say Reverend Jesse Jackson, who also tried,
no, he was a puppet too. Seriously, the reason why I can say that is because I lived during the time.
You know that.
I lived it, and
yes.
I know, and I dialogued with other ministers when they all met up in Detroit, Michigan at the Radisson Cadillac, and I was asking, how come Coretta King hates Jesse Jackson with a passion? I was looking at them interacting. And one of the ministers said, it's because she know that Jesse Jackson was in on backing off and allowing Martin Luther King to get assassinated. He was in... They knew that he had sealed his death when he started speaking out against the Vietnamese War. So I don't see Jesse Jackson in the same light. I really don't. I don't see H. Rap Brown. H. Rap Brown was being paid by the CIA. Get a riot started over here, then they would move him to another area. Get a riot started over there. Even the Black Panthers, it came out that they were also paid by the CIA.
Okay, so Jamal, go ahead, man. I don't know who is going to be a non-puppet that we could call a black person who's made it to the top.
Well, the ones that got assassinated, the ones that are dead. Medgar Evers.
Hold on.
Malcolm X.
Hold on, Pastor.
Martin Luther King. But anybody that go up against the establishment and they're not sailing their ship in the same direction and they refuse to recant, they'll get rid of you.
But those are not those still made it to the top. I got stuff. Go ahead, Jamal.
I'm gonna say this to Pastor Green. Since everybody's a puppet, this is my point.
I'm not saying everybody's a puppet. I'm saying that some people they speak their mind and they don't back down. They speak from the heart. A lot of these people that are operating and they call themselves leaders of black people, they have script writers just like most presidents. They don't speak from the heart. They are going along with the script. And if they deviate from the script, they would find some way to move them out and bring somebody else in that'll do the bidding. And if they can't move them out one way, they have another way that they can get rid of you.
But to your point, this is why black people can never come together. You want to know why? For everything you just said, Pastor Green. Because we got sellouts. According to your puppinism, we got people who sell out for money, who be used for money, power, and wealth. Whether it's Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, or we got all these gatekeepers in Hollywood. Look at Tyler Perry in Atlanta, right here in Atlanta. He's only an hour 20 minutes from me. He got the first black Hollywood studio. Then 50 Cent is trailing behind him over in Shreveport, Louisiana. We have all this stuff, but you know why? Because let's just say this is a question for you, Pastor Green. Hypothetically, let's just say we all did come together. Okay, we have our own land. It is always that house Negro, because that's what we was conditioned during slavery. We had the field and we had the house, and we still today have that same mentality because we don't listen. When I was out the streets, I came around with a brand new Beamer, my own set. I had dudes from my own crew were hating on me. Because why? Not happy for me. They was hating on me because I had more than them. And that's always been our problem. We're as a race, and God is for the human race. I want to make that clear. But as a race, we are one of the most powerful, far as smart ideas. A lot of the things that we use today were made by black brains. And black people made the phone, and they charge us today. Black people made the street light. Okay, now we got to obey the law. There's a lot of things that we made that was taken from us. Okay, but there's always going to be that sellout. If we were to come together for money, power, and position, there's always going to be that sellout. This is why we can never come together, according to your point, Pastor Green. To your point, because whether Barack Obama is a puppet, he would have sold us out. Jesse Jackson would have sold us out, and what's his name? Al Sharpton would have sold us out.
He's still selling us out.
Go back and look at his track record, fighting with other black men on YouTube. He's a sellout too. He's a sellout. He's been talking about building a school for blacks for the last 10 to 13 years, and ain't school built yet. But he took all that money that black people donated to him to build that school. What do he do with the money? He's a sellout. He do nothing for us. All he does is run his mouth. That's what he does. This is why we need Jesus. This is why.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, you got to be willing to die, and Jesus was willing to die. That's the bottom line. You got to be willing to die in order to be able to make things move in the direction that God would have it to move. You got to lay down your life.
I think that's what Jamal said.
I agree with you.
Blood has to be shed.
I agree with Jamal 100%, but you don't have to do it in a violent way. All you need to do is just wake up, look at the oppressor that got their foot on your neck, and say,
Who's the oppressor, though? I believe blacks and whites are oppressing just the same.
I'm just saying.
I want to get these young guys. I want to get these young guys. Misael, I want to hear what you got to say, brother. Come a little closer to that mic, or bring a little bit closer to you.
Okay. Well, for me, I'm from Dominican Republic, born and raised. So personally, I didn't experience that kind of racism. It's more like classism, as Larry Ellie was in. So we come from, well, first of all, the point for Dr. Umar, I do not agree with that, because I come from a mix. In Dominican Republic, we come from Africans, Spain people, and also Tainos, who was in the island already. So we are kind of like a mix. So that quote, "Black Queens Forever" is nobody's ever, is something that maybe I'm not agree with that, because I'm a mix. I'm a black person here in US, I can be also as an American, because people confuse me, but I have friends, they are white, straight, and they are Dominicans too. So what's the difference? We are, as you said, we are diversity. We all are different. So the point is that we just need Jesus in our lives. pretty much.
At the end of
'Cause
the day.
At the end of the day, because we need to understand we are not the same, we are different, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I appreciate that commentary, because that's the point here is, at the end of the day, you know, we are fighting, and I do want to understand, you know, who is our enemy, because at this point, if the oppressor is the white man and that's our enemy, then it becomes a race war between blacks and whites.
Now, its oppressor is not necessarily the white man. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you consider Exodus 1, verses 1 to 12, the reason why God put that in there, not so that you would see what Pharaoh was thinking, but that you would be able to recognize what people are thinking, people that are in positions of power. That's how they think. They look at numbers. Numbers is power. When you have a group that is growing, you have to find a way to slow down the growth. Because if you don't slow down the growth, sooner or later, they're gonna be on top and you're gonna be on the bottom. That's what I'm saying. It's not about black or white.
But we're still 13%. We're just 13% of the population
I know that.
in America. So how
what
how
has
are we
happened?
growing?
What have happened? Like I said, I grew up during the time of the 60s.
Yeah.
And I knew what happened when Martin Luther King was assassinated and there was riots.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived when all of a sudden the drug dealers that came into our communities, they
Right
weren't
after that.
black.
Right.
Originally, they weren't black.
No.
They were white. They were hippies, straggly haired hippies. And then all of a sudden, the drug dealers went from white
To black.
to black.
Right.
And so they brought in the drugs. Not long after the drugs, AIDS came
right
into
after.
the community.
Crack and AIDS.
Crack and AIDS came in to slow down the growth because this
That was
group
my
were
era.
becoming, And they did the same thing in Africa, you know, just like that UN secretary, general secretary of the UN. Back during the time of the 60s, he wanted to try to develop the African nations. But the United States, CIA, got together with Great Britain, the UK, and their secret services, and they introduced AIDS into Senegal and Zaire and places like that. They introduced because they needed to depopulate so they could get in there and rob the resources in those areas. They weren't concerned about developing these nations. And in order so that they can go forward, they killed the Secretary General of the UN. His plane came down and crashed. He was assassinated.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that it's about power. It's about control.
I agree with that, right? Yes, there is that, you know, there's a lot of play there about power and control and the things that they will do to stop certain things from happening. Let's talk about certain things that are happening. We've got Planned Parenthoods in a lot of our neighborhoods, right? Who percentage-wise, who patronize those Planned Parenthoods more than anybody else?
Ignorance. Now, if people were,
what color of people patronize the Planned Parenthood more than anybody else?
It's probably it may be black people,
Of course.
because of ignorance.
Okay, now, going back to your point.
You need to do some history on Margaret Sanger.
Going back to
She
your
was
point.
a eugenicist.
Right, going back to your point, eugenicism, that started way back in the 30s, okay? Way back in the 30s. Now,
So was syphilis.
right, let's take a look at that. Now, that started way back in the 30s. They had a plan to depopulate this planet for years. Depopulation was not something that just started a couple months ago. This has been going on for a long time, almost 100 years now. Depopulation of this earth by mankind, from mankind, has been going on, okay? And Margaret Sanger was part of that. Now, what population of people that they wanted to depopulate? Blacks. For a long time, it's been blacks, okay? And still today, it's still black. However, we've allowed them, just as we've allowed the drugs and all the other things to creep into our neighborhoods, into our community, we've allowed that. You know why? Exactly what Jamal was talking about. Because we want power. We want power. Okay?
We want to live.
No, not just that, but we want power. That's what we want. We want to have control.
We want to be left alone.
No, there's some people that want to be left alone.
Yeah.
There's some blacks.
Remember
that don't.
Black Wall Street? What
I
happened
remember.
to them? What happened to them?
I still remember Black Wall Street.
Yeah, they got wiped out, didn't they?
Of course. You know why? Because of economy. Because of currency, money. That's why.
Yeah,
because
they
of
were
currency.
growing. They were prospering too
They
much.
were prospering. Yes, they were prospering.
They became a threat.
They became a threat. But understand this, Pastor Green. If I have to come in, what's going to be the easiest way for me to destroy something that's growing good? Infiltrate, right? But I'm going to infiltrate. I'm going to see where I can find the missing or the
weakest link.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for the weakest link. And in many cases, the weakest link happened within the people who are running the operation. There are people who believe that they have more power over their own brother or sister. They believe that they should be the ones running it the way that they want to run it. So if I'm seeing that, who do I go to? I go to the person who has a chip on their shoulder. And I talk to that person.
Or ambitious.
Exactly. That's who I talk to. And that's normally the way it happens where they fall.
Well, see, that's the same thing that happened with, remember we were talking the other day about black unions? And all the conference presidents got together. And one of the ones that was leading out with this whole move to try to establish a black union, because the money and the power is on the union level, right. It was Bradford. Bradford was the main one. And then all of a sudden they threw him a bone. He accepted the bone. And then when George Earl, the president of the Northeastern Conference, went to Brad and says, all right, Brad, what is going to be our next move? Well, brethren, I represent the world church. Now all of a sudden he's a vice president, in the GC. So now all of a sudden he's out of it. He says, I represent the world church. So you fellas, you're going to have to run this thing on your own. There's always somebody that will sell out for money.
And that's the point.
Go ahead, Jamal.
No, I'm saying that, but that was my point. After we just said, selling out. Even at some point, and a lot of people go, they're not gonna like what I'm about to say, but if you look at the history, Martin Luther King was doing things for the Jesuits.
Yes, I was going to get there.
But he probably didn't realize it. He probably didn't realize it at the time.
A lot of people don't understand that. He was working for the Jesuits. And the minute he wanted to be a real activist, that's when they assassinated. That's why he got killed.
Have you ever read the autobiography of Malcolm X? When he had a meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yes.
In that book, they came to agreement because they woke up. They said, one thing that the two of us have in common, we're both dead men. Because they knew, because they woke up, they were going to be taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Jamal.
Larry, but I want to say this. Anytime somebody of color would get too powerful, that's when they assassinated. That's why they killed Biggie and Pac. Because Biggie had a whole coast. Tupac had another coast.
Right.
That was too powerful for a black man.
Right. But who did they get? Who was the antagonist that they used to get those black men killed? Another black man.
Another black man. Yeah.
That's it. That's how it works.
But Larry, that goes back to my point. This is why we need Jesus. Jesus can only fix this problem. Because let's just say, hypothetically, if we were to all come together, we have our own land, our own businesses, and now what? Now what?
Right.
Let's just say all our black men start just dating black women. Now what?
Right.
Now what? What's next? Know what's going to be next? Satan's going to use that as leverage to start a war. Because there's always going to be that one sellout. Because our condition, some of us are still conditioned from back in slavery. You had the failed Negroes and you had the house Negroes. The house Negroes was in the house because they were more lighter skinned than the field.
Mm-hmm.
They got more privileges in the house. They didn't have to be out in the field in the heat, working 15, 18 hours a day. They got more freedom. And that's how it is today. When you look at these bullets, who do you think was front and center of Oakwood? Oakwood is a HBCU school. It should have never been an HBCU school. It should have been a Seventh-day Adventist school. But it's a black school. So if it's a black school, I mean, like we was talking about, if it's a black school, that means there's definitely, they got fraternities. If you got fraternities and frats and all that, that's all part of the secret society. That's no different from being a Freemason.
It all connects with Rome.
It all connects with Rome.
And even Obama was a Prince Hall Freemason.
Let me make this clear. All black schools are owned by, or all started by white people, not black people. Go look at the history.
Right.
Hampton University is named after a white man. Go look at the history. Morehouse, that's not a black person that school's named after. Go find out who Morehouse is. It's a white person.
Right.
But we don't know our history. We want to fight over black and white. This is why we need Jesus.
So intertwined, so interconnected.
And the thing about it, the only ones that really can advance are the ones that have membership in these organizations. Because in order to join these invitations, you got to do some despicable things. You got to sleep with somebody. You got to do something in the initiation. And they keep a file on you so that if you ever get out of line, they are going to expose these despicable things you did in order to gain and get the perks and all of the benefits of being in that boule sorority or fraternity, Masons, Shriners. They can destroy your reputation because of the despicable things you had to do in the initiation of it. And that's how they control you. As long as you got membership, you will move forward, but you will move forward as a puppet being controlled.
Let me say this. When we own 3 medical clinics, right? Back in 2020, we had 3 of them up. Now we have 2 down to 2. Okay. When Trump was in office, Trump gave the HBU schools, I think it was like $65 million or something like that, to the HBCU school. And the reason why I know about it, because we got some of that money. And the reason why we got some of that money is because of the medical field, because students were sent to our clinic right here in Collegedale, Tennessee. We had got a condo where we were housing some of the Morehouse doctors. We were housing some of the students there. Do you know that a lot of HBCU gatekeepers, they squandered the money away? And these were for the black doctors. They don't have a lot of the money no more because of the programs, because they squandered the money away. Why do you think Deion Sanders, the coach of Colorado, why do you think he left Jackson State? It wasn't just because he had a great opportunity was in front of him. It's because they made promises to him that because they were stealing from the man.
Did you ever look at that? Did you ever look at that interview that Oprah Winfrey had with Dave Chappelle? And Dave Chappelle on the Oprah Winfrey show said that he wanted to channel some of the money toward his alma mater. And Oprah freaked out. And she said, no, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Right.
And Dave Chappelle said, why? You just can't say that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because your money is their money. You can't even spend your own money the way you want to. The moment you start channeling your money in a way that they don't want to, they will bust you. They will bankrupt you. They will take every dime away from you. You have to get permission as to how you're going to spend that money, because they don't see it as your money. It's their money.
They do that to any black or white person. They did it to white boy Eminem. They did it to a lot of other people. They do the same thing.
That's why Robert Williams killed him.
Robert Williams the same way. These people, again, it's not, they don't care about, understand, Jamal, when you get up there, they don't care about color. They want you, it's about control over you. They don't care about color. It's about the money and control over you. Dave Chappelle said the same thing. That's the reason why he ran off to Africa.
Thus Africa.
Okay. And you know who else says the same thing? Martin Lawrence. Say the same thing.
And they thought he was crazy.
Okay. Because it's about power over you at this point. What did they do to Eminem? They sent a male dude to come down and in some type of I think it was an award show, and he was like dressed like an angel, and he landed down right between in Eminem's lap. Okay? Just to let you know, this is not a black or white thing. It's not a black or white thing. We now on the ground, we make it so. You know why we make it so? Put it like this. Black Lives Matter came around before George Floyd.
The billionaire.
Right?
A white man.
Started by George Soros, funded by George Soros, okay? Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Okay. I can look, that moniker draws a lot, because for black people, we want to say, yes, our lives do matter. Above whose? Above whose else? Right? Above who else? Because now, yeah, we're putting ourselves on top. Our lives do matter. But when you look at it from this perspective, if our lives matter, if it matters, wouldn't it be the right thing to go into the black neighborhoods, though? Into our black communities? Take care of our black communities, that those lives that are being lost, the ones who go into the abortion clinics, those babies, shut those down. Again, we're about 13% of the population. Like, we keep saying that. If you want us to grow, stop aborting black babies. Fathers, stay in your homes. Mothers, understand your roles.
In New York City, were you familiar with what happened, in the area called Resurrection City in Brooklyn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That whole community was controlled. It was under the control of the Muslims.
Right.
In that community, you didn't throw garbage and stuff anywhere you wanted.
You find out in Michigan as
You
well.
You don't have any drug dealers. Those
No.
Muslims would have got them and beat them and drove them out of the community.
Pastor Green, you remember the angels? What you call them back in New York back in the 80s?
Hell's
no,
Angels?
no. The guardian angels back
Guardian
in the 80s.
Angels. Yeah.
With the red
Yes.
berets. Remember
They
those
were
guys?
patrolling.
Patrolling, right? They were doing that for free for
Yeah.
a long time, right?
Yeah.
When those guardian angels in New York used to patrol the streets and patrol the subways,
Yeah.
because we had a lot of problem with the subways, graffiti and all that kind of stuff in the 80s, right? You saw crime go down.
Yes.
Right? It went down because these people they cared about the community. You know what they did to those guardian angels? Wiped them out, moved them away, because they wanted the crime to rise back in New York. Okay?
Now, when you say who drove them out?
Oh, the city, the government.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Now, I understand it to be, you know what? We need to keep the drugs coming in. We need, because what it fuels what they want. Right? You just finished saying about those Muslims in Brooklyn. What about the Muslims also in Michigan? There are a lot of Muslims in Detroit and Michigan that have the same belief. They take care of their community. You go to Chinatown, it's the same system. These people take care of their community. What is it with black people, though? What is it with black people that we have to feel that, you know why? We're oppressed, and the only way that we need help is from the government.
You're not going to get any help.
No, but we want the government we want the government to help us out.
You got to govern yourself. And there are some groups I saw on the news the other day where you have security guards, black security guards patrolling, the communities where black people dwell. One of the things that, at one of the meetings when I was pastoring in the Rochester, New York area, they had all the leaders, the pastors, all the heads of various organizations come together. And I raised the question. I said, why is it that on my way to church, I got to see pockets of, thugs, shooting dice? My members of my church got to walk through that just to get to the church. And then the policeman says, well, we try to disperse them, but they'll just move from one area to another area. It's difficult to control that. But let me tell you something. That kind of stuff will never happen in a white community. It wouldn't happen because they patrol their areas.
Right.
There would be no place for these drug dealers, people shooting dice. There would be no place. But they allow it. They allow it to go on in the black community. And yeah, like you said, the only way black people are going to be able to rise above that, you got to patrol your own community.
And there's no problem with that. I have no problem with that. You know why? We call the white people Karens who patrol their community. Yes, they may come out and be like, you guys don't belong here, because they're patrolling their community. And we call them Karens. Okay? All right. I'm telling you, I told you guys, this is going to be straightforward of a podcast tonight. Okay? We call them people Karens, but they're patrolling their community. You don't see black people doing that. I've driven and I've traveled many, many places. And I'm going to tell you something. I can go to Chattanooga and I know the difference between a white neighborhood and a black neighborhood. Total different. And it's not because the white people are keeping them there. No, the black people want to be there. You know why? Because the government is keeping them there. The government gives you subsidy to live in those neighborhoods. They give you $800 a month while you only give them $300 a month. Your rent is only $200 a month because the government is paying 2/3 of your rent. It's called being on welfare. And that started by whom? A white president. Okay? So again, all these things that people are telling me, well, Larry, the black man needs help. We need to get to second base. We need the government to put us on second base so that we can get to third. No, you see, what's going to happen is when the government puts you on second base so you can get to third, eventually you're going to tell the government, no, we need to get to the third base. Help us get to third base now. And all you're going to do is be progressive as it goes on. We need to stop with that. The more we continue to be claiming ourselves to be oppressors or oppressive, you're the ones that have our necks under the boots of a white man's shoe. The longer we stay there thinking that means two things, especially for Christians. Especially for Christians, we don't believe in Jesus. We don't. Because you see, Jesus gives it all to us in his word. He lets us know that we don't need to have the man our strength to make the man's strength or the man's arm our strength. The moment we do that, it's a curse. But it sounds like that's what we want. And that's the problem that I'm having today. And then everything or anything that's done, it's racism. It's racism.
Well,
and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's not everything, but I mean,
no. I'm saying it makes it sound like anything that happens. Let me tell you something. What's that guy's name that has that show? Roland Martin.
Yeah.
Roland Martin just had a question. A white man questioned him about his. He went to an HBCU school. What was it, Jamal? That he had on? He had on. I believe TCU, right? TCU.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? Oh, no, Texas A&M. Texas A&M. Texas A&M, right? Yeah. He went A&M, right? He went to Texas A&M. He went to a HBCU school. Okay, he wears his what he likes to wear in terms of the school that he went to and making sure that people can see the colors or whatever have you. So a white guy said, "Hey, did you play or did you attend the school? Did you play for the team or did you attend the school?" Do you know that Roland Martin said that man was racist for asking that question? For asking the question. Again, these are race hustlers, race baiters. And again, you're looking for some type of racial war. So anything somebody says to you that is of another race becomes a racist comment, a racist question, a racist this, a racist that. Come on now. We have to rise above that. And I'm only speaking to those in our church. Why? Because in our church, we do have racism. We do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. It exists. Big time, as to why we have we have conferences that are different. We have a white conference and a black conference. Why? Pastor Green, you know the history.
Yeah, well, I mean, the history is, it goes all the way back to the 40s. And black folks began to increase in numbers, and they went to the representatives at the General Conference and told them, we want you to integrate on all levels of this church. Either that, the other option is, give us the right to govern ourselves. Give us our own conferences. And so the brethren chose the lesser of the two options. They said, go ahead and take your conference, because they felt that with black folks trying to govern themselves, that eventually they would get frustrated, the whole thing would fall apart, and it would be back the way it was before. But those conferences actually did very well, and they're still doing very well. A matter of fact, the black conferences per capita, I mean, as far as they are stronger financially than the what do you call it? The nominal, nominal conferences.
Correct.
They're stronger financially. So you know.
But that goes to show and prove what we're talking about, Pastor Green. That we're not being oppressed by our white conferences. We're not. We've shown that we can do just as much and even better. Yeah. Right? But that's my point. My point is, why are we stuck? Especially as Christians. Forget the rest of the world now. The rest of the world, I'm pushing them back outside. As Christians, though, why are we under this banner of, this is racist, this is that, and this is this? When Jesus says in 1 Timothy chapter 3, I think it's 1 Timothy, chapter 1, verse 3 and 4. Am I right? Yeah, 3 and 4. As I besought thee to abide still at Ephesus, when I went to Macedonia, that thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine. Here's what he's saying, Paul is saying. Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions. All it does is just brings up questions, and it brings division. He says, rather, it brings up questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. So don't get caught up in the racial discussions.
Yeah. Well, you don't necessarily got to get caught up in it. It's just that, when you embrace the gospel, a lot of times you had a lot of people, black folks saying that Christianity is the opiate of the people. No, when you get Christianity right in you, it makes you want to stand up and speak truth to power. That's what Christianity does for me. That's why when I'm in the presence of a white person and even in the community where I'm living in Grundy County, I look the man right in the eye and he's expecting me to react one way, but as far as I'm concerned, I am your equal. And then sooner or later they'll realize this guy is different from the other ones that I deal with. I look at myself as being equal to the next person, but at the same time, I realize that there is a mentality, in this community. And I got a total line like nobody else, even when it comes to driving the bus. You got this black guy, over there in Chattanooga, that was driving a bus in a residential area real fast. And I think he killed about 7 people on that bus. 7 kids got killed because he was doing like 60 or 70 miles an hour in a residential area and wrapped the bus around a tree. Now, every white person that see this black dude driving around a bus, they watch me very carefully. And they're all connected. They're all tied up. They've had the police, if I go over the speed limit, all of a sudden, you got to watch this guy. Look, he's going 5 miles, 10 miles over the speed limit. You look at the bus drivers in Grundy County, they be going so fast, all you can see is a blue streak. But when I go by, I'm a target simply because of the color of my skin. They got people that will get in front of my bus on one of the streets. And this lady was doing 10 miles an hour, forcing me to go 10 down this long strip. I go down 108. And they got cops in a dugout waiting for me to go by. But I'm doing the speed limit because I understand that I am a target. This is the kind of stuff that I got to deal with. Recognizing the fact that there is racism. You are going to be targeted. You're an enigma
Isn't it the
in
same?
a community.
Go ahead, Jamal.
Even the schools. The high school. I don't think that there's one solid black person in the high school or in elementary north.
Here?
There's no blacks.
But where you are, this come on now. You can't.
I know. I'm just saying that you got to recognize where you are. And because of that, there is racism. There's racism that even exists within the church. You got to recognize that. But at the same time, when you realize that you're being targeted, you realize that something isn't right, you speak up. You don't allow somebody, I don't care who it is, if they're in a position of leadership, you do not allow them to sweep things under the rug. You talk about it. You have meetings about it. And we've ran into problems. You know what I'm talking about,
yes,
Larry.
I was there.
We can't even have a discussion about CRT. You can't have a discussion about racism or anything like that that's going on because you get the silent treatment.
Go ahead, Jay.
I take care of something real quick.
Go ahead.
No. I said put the camera on you and Pastor Green.
Oh yeah. I got you. Yeah. But I'll say this. I'll say this. We have spoken in some regard to racism in the church, and this is a sensitive subject. No one wants to feel like they're the cause
Perpetrator
or perpetrator of racism. Okay, Now, when it comes to education and CRT and these things, right? Critical race theory. I don't support that because I'm making activists out of our kids. Now, education begins in home. When it comes to at home, and it comes to our culture, and it comes to, what we believe as a race, that's at home.
But they teach everybody else's race in the school system.
No. When I was at school, I did get Black history. I got that. I was taught Black history.
That's because you were living in New York City.
But that's anywhere, though. I listen, again, if Black history is not being taught at the school the way that it needs to be taught at the school, at home. At home. Again, the reason is because even in everybody else's history, which I think should be done, and if they skip out on Black history, let the Black people teach that at home.
I think that it should be across the board.
It should.
I believe you ought to teach the truth about the history of this country.
I believe it is across the board.
It's not.
But that's relative, Pastor Green. We don't know for sure how much it is not across the board, right? We can't tell for sure because we're not there. We're not teaching. Now, what you're getting from the schools, you're only getting by hearsay. You're getting by hearsay. You're not there. So what I'm saying to you is,
it's not.
What I'm saying to you is there is Black history being taught in schools. How I know? Because I've got kids in school still. Okay, they're getting taught history. Now the thing about it is this: when you teaching kids
are not in the public school system.
When you teaching kids in a public school system about CRT, critical race theory is a position of putting these kids to become activists. I have not seen anything good come out of critical race theory. Look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Pull up the numbers that CRT's been going for the past 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Because before CRT was no kids left behind. So for the past 3.5 years, look at those numbers and see what child, even right now, our education system is going to bonkers. Kids don't have mathematics skills that they used to have. Reading is down. There are kids right now in Chicago in these public schools, Chicago, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and all these other places where their reading and mathematics is down to almost zero. And you know who are the perpetrators of this? Most of the Black kids. Most of the Black kids can't read or write right now. Right. But they're learning about critical race theory. This is the issue that I'm saying. It's not working. It's not working. We learned mathematics, arithmetic. We learned reading. We learned how to comprehend. That's the reason why we're here today, knowing how to speak, knowing how to do things because of what we've learned. But today, these kids coming up behind us, man, are these going to be, let them be the leaders now. You're losing. And that's the whole point. To destroy a nation, to bring down a nation, to degrade a nation, it starts with education. And if you can dissolve education from these children, the future looks grim and dim. And that's the whole point of this. So critical race theory today is not working. It hasn't worked since it began. That's what I'm talking about. We need to go ahead and go back to teaching our kids at home, even though they go to public schools. My son went to a public school. Elliot went to a public school, and I'm going to tell you something. When he came home with foolishness, I told him straight out, you're passing this because you need to pass for a grade, but you're not learning this. You're not learning this. This is a grade thing. They want you to make sure that you get past, do it for a grade thing, but you're not learning. You're not keeping this in your head because this is not what your parents teach you at home. He understood the assignment. He went past it, and that was it.
Well, I mean, my son going to Marlboro High when we were living in New York City, he was going to the public school system for a while. And they were teaching alternate lifestyles. And he was coming home with all of this mess. And I had to straighten him out, Bob and Joe, dwelling together and having a child, don't buy into that. I had to tell him, don't buy. Just like that is being taught in the school system, there's a lot of other stuff that need to be revamped, that need to be rearranged. And when it comes to this whole concept of how this country came about is not really across the board being fairly taught. And it's just not. It's not. So you get a lopsided view of the history of this country. You don't get true education. You
So
get
you
pretty
wanted to
much.
learn. You wanted to learn about slavery.
I'm just saying, just tell the truth. That's it. Tell the truth.
Again, Pastor Green, I believe even with history, and you're talking about a person who learned, who I am a historicist. I love history. I don't take what I learned at school. I went and I researched myself. I traveled myself to go see certain places so I can learn about the things that I heard from school. Okay, and the thing that when I went to those places, man, it shocked me more than anything else because I was taught one thing about black people, and then I learned so many things about black people somewhere else. That was shocking to me. That I was like, wait, what I learned at school was totally different from what you're telling me now, and some of it could be on the negative side because the positive side happened at school, and what they tell me, no, that never happened, or vice versa. What they tell me on the negative side at school, I learned it was actually positive when I, in my later my life, and I'm like, oh, that's what that was all about. So again, it's about, yes, you're not going to get all of it at the school. The school, yes, is 8 hours, but they're giving you sections of it in segments. When you come home to your child comes home and you ask them, how was your day at school? What did they teach you? Well, how was history like today? And they tell you, well, we learned about black history, what we learned about this, that, and the third, and Martin Luther King, this, that, and the third. How many of us, Jamal, now that this Martin Luther King, all these files are coming out and we can go and look at it for ourselves, right? How much of it now that we go, well, what I learned about Martin Luther King was this, but what I'm seeing about this man was something totally different.
Yeah, Martin Luther King worked with the Jesuits. Martin Luther King.
And hold on, Jamal. Pastor Green, he knew he was working with the Jesuits. He knew because everything that Martin Luther King did was strategic. He worked with the Jesuits. He knew he worked with the Catholic Church. Go ahead, Jamal.
I think.
No. He definitely worked with the Catholic Church, and in so many ways, he was selling us out for so many ways. It's too when he said, "No, I'm not doing this no more. I'm gonna stay with my people." That's when they killed him.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I asked Jamal when you first got into the Masons, the Masonic. Did you really know what you were getting into? Did you really understand those vows that you took?
He was a Freemason himself.
I didn't get you. What you said?
Martin Luther King was a Freemason himself.
Oh yeah.
He knew exactly what he was getting into.
A lot of times you join these organizations and you don't really realize how demonic it is until you start getting
to the top.
higher up.
Right.
You begin to evolve in your understanding of these organizations. And Martin Luther King reached a point where he began to see that the whole civil rights movement was being funded by the Communist Party. He understood that there was a communist element that was funding the civil rights organization. And a lot of that money was being channeled to bomb and blow up innocent children over there in Vietnam and all of that. And Martin Luther King said, enough is enough.
Yeah. Because a lot of blood was on his hands that we don't know about. We don't look at him as this hero, this great hero, but a lot of blood was on his hands.
That's why Malcolm X said what he said. Go ahead, Jamal.
I'll say this. When I became a Freemason, I always believed in God. I always believed that there was a God, and I always believed in God. I always prayed. But I did not know what a Seventh-day Adventist was. I didn't know. I wasn't in the church. I was in the streets. And that's when you just can't become a Freemason. Okay? You got to be chosen. I had an uncle and an aunt that was a Freemason. My older brother was a Freemason. And so, I was asked by my aunt, and she was married, which is her husband, and he said, "You all right?" I asked him what was it about, and that's how I went in because I saw what my brother did in the court because I was in the street. I really wanted to use it to my advantage to get myself out of trouble at times, and it worked. And so what happened was, my uncle, he said, we're out of season because they have seasons of Freemasonry when you can come in. We were in the summer. He said in September we open back up, and this is what you need to have at your house. You need to have some liquor, and you need to have some food. And 4 men came to my house, knocked on my door, come September. At the time, I was living with my mother at the time. And I wasn't married, had no children at the time. I was 24 years old. And I was working construction. That's what I was because I didn't want to sell drugs because people were snitching in the streets. So I was doing construction. So I took up a trade. And so so they came to my door, and we had like a 2-hour conversation. And they asked me, "Are you married?" Because if you're married, they have to ask your wife. Now they're gonna lie to your wife. If you're married, they're gonna tell your wife, "No, this is a charitable, organization, and they do charitable things. They do stuff for the elderly. They do stuff for the children. They do stuff for Christmas. They are a charitable organization, but you get down to the nitty gritty. So, and then they said they let me know if they're gonna invite me to come in to for initiation. And so I got a call 2 weeks later. They said my uncle called me and said, "Hey, congratulations, son." He used to call me son. He said, "Congratulations, man. And listen, they like you, like your character, and they want to bring you in. And they gave me my date to come in, and they told me to be at this. This is what you need to bring for your initiation. You need to have a black suit, white gloves, black bow tie, and you need to have a bottle of liquor. There's always a bottle of liquor. You gotta have a bottle of liquor. Every time we had to do something, we always gotta bring a bottle of liquor. And and I'll tell her, at some point I want to, for the second time I'll tell my testimony one day. But you know what I'm saying, and that's how I came into the Freemasonry, not knowing. But I will say this as far as my initiation. That's how I learned. That's how I learned the Bible. I didn't know nothing about the Bible. I never read the Bible up to this point. Like when I was young, I went to church, but we were playing in the basement, playing hide go seek and stuff like that. Like we you know what I'm saying? We went to a Baptist church. I never went to the services. I didn't listen to none of that stuff when I was a child. We were running around, Most of me and Larry got similar stories. But
well, the point I was trying to make, you joined it thinking one thing, but the further up you went, you began to understand that something is kind of shady about this. That's the same thing with my father. I was telling you that he went to Milwaukee, transferred his membership, so that when he came back to Niagara Falls, they would leave him alone because his membership is no longer in Niagara Falls. He wanted to cut ties, but at the same time, he said there's some things that he just can't talk about because if he did, they'll find out about it. Because when you take those vows, you are forming a pact with the devil. Trust me, it's a spiritual thing. That's why, Jonathan and King Saul, when they were trying to find who was the perpetrator that broke the vow as they were getting ready to go, they began to cast lots. And then they narrowed it down from tribe to tribe to tribe to tribe. And then finally, it says Jonathan was taken, meaning that Jonathan was the guilty person. That's why I tell people all the time, if you gamble, you can't be on the line. You can't straddle the line. You got, if you want to prosper, you got to be either holy for God or holy for the devil. Because all of these perks and all of these things, just like Jesus was taken to the pinnacle of the temple, and Lucifer said, "I will give you all of this if you just bow down and worship me." I known people that gamble, that sold their soul to the devil. There was even a particular sister from Buffalo, and her sister. She lived in Rochester, but her other sister lived in Buffalo, and the one in Buffalo said, "Would you please talk to my sister and try to get her back in the church?" And so I talked to her, and I said, "You need to come on back to the church. Come on back to the Lord." And she said, "I can't because I got a brand new house. I got brand new cars. I will lose all of this if I leave, if I come back to the church, and I'm not willing to lose everything that I've been able to, build up here, because that's what Satan gives you, locks you in with all these material things. The problem with that, at the end of all of that, you got to go with Lucifer to the lake of fire."
Okay, so I'm gonna say this here. I'm gonna say this right quick. So hold on, Jay. I'm going to bring up some history real quick. So Martin Luther King Sr., the father of Martin Luther King Jr., was indeed a Freemason. So was his grandfather, Reverend A.D. Williams, they were Freemasons. So
Half my family,
they-
most of my family are tied in
to the
with Masonic.
Freemasons, right?
Yes.
But watch this. The thing is, though, they were high-ranking Freemasons.
Yeah.
They were high-ranking Freemasons. They knew what they were doing. And Junior knew what he was doing, right? He became, actually, I lie. And I want to correct myself instead of saying that. I said his father knew what he was doing. Grandfather knew what he was doing, but I wanted to go and check myself because I wanted to make sure I fact-checked myself. Martin Luther King was not a member of the Freemason. He was not. Because I wanted to fact-check myself because I was thinking about it as you guys were talking, and I was saying, wait a minute, was he really a Freemason? Let me go fact-check myself. His dad was, and his dad was a high-ranking Freemason, but Martin Luther King himself was not a Freemason. I'm actually looking at it right now to go pull it up because I wanted to make sure that, I didn't want nobody to do that for me and then say, hey, Larry, you're lying. He was not. But the truth of the matter is
Freemason handshakes all the time.
the truth of the matter is, though, he understood his assignment. Watch this. Because a lot of things are coming out on him now, and, yes, he was a hero to many black people. But there are black people who are realizing that he was not much of a hero in a lot of the things that they're pulling up with the CIA files. Now, again, CIA could be lying as well because that's the purpose of trying to get rid of him because he was pulling up the numbers of black people that were all following this man, right? But if we are looking at, certain black people to be their arm our flesh, their flesh our arm, then we are putting ourselves in a disadvantage. Again, Jesus is the answer to this problem. And we cannot fix this problem. We can talk about it, Pastor Green. And black people love talking about it. But when you ask them for a solution, what's the solution? They don't come up with one outside of Christ. They can't. Al Sharpton, when something happens, like this whole DEI thing when they canceled when Target said they're going to get away from DEI and all these other stores, what did Al Sharpton go do? What's the thing that Al Sharpton did? He went marching.
Anything to go public.
Anything to go public, but he went marching. He went marching to.
He only marches when the white cop kills a black or a white person kills a black person. He wants to march.
He wants to
nobody's
march.
Marching in Chicago, in Memphis, or with black on black crime. Nobody's marching.
He doesn't go there. Again, that's my point. My point is these people are here to make money off of the same black people. That's their thing. Money. They're making money, and we don't see that. I'm lost in the fact that, look, they're not really taking care of you. They're not coming into your neighborhoods and in your communities. No, Black Lives Matter made billions of dollars, bought billions of dollars of houses, and they took care of themselves. But they didn't repurpose that money back into the community. No. Al Sharpton, he went to Costco, and he says, look, we're going to give everybody $25, a $25 gift card at Costco. $25 at Costco does not buy you a slice of pizza. It doesn't. You go to Costco's and you're asking for a pizza and ice cream, and it's $25.99. Okay? So here it is. The day he knew exactly that. And get this. They went to Costco's, and then Costco turned around and go, look, we getting rid of it too because it's not making us any money. You gave them $25 gift cards, and they came over here to shop, and they put a bunch of stuff in their basket, and they walked out with nothing. The same people that walked in, who was part of his nonprofit organization, they're the ones that came in. And I'm gonna guarantee you, most of them walked out with nothing because it was all for a show. Again, we put ourselves in a position for a narrative just to make sure that we are looking like something. Brothers and sisters, if you are a child of the King, you are already on top of the fray. You are already above the issues. You are a child of God, the creator of this universe. Whether you're black, white, red, yellow, brown, green, I don't care. You are a child of God, and that puts you in a different position. When you get to heaven, brothers and sisters, point me to the place in heaven. Point me to it. That's going to be the black side. Is it going to be the east side, the north side, The west side? The south side? What area in heaven where all the black folks are going to hang out? And what area in heaven the black people won't be able to go visit the white people? You know, here's the thing. When we before we leave the foot, but while we're leaving the ground, the Bible says, in the Bible tells me that we will, in the twinkling of an eye, be changed. I don't know what color we will be. I have no clue. Our name is going to change. Our features are going to change, and not the features, but our look. We're not going to have the same clothes on. We're going to be bright. We're going to be shining. So I don't know, what is it that we think, that we feel, that we have to be all hopped up on this planet about something that ain't going to save us one bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that's, I mean, we know that, it's not going to be a black heaven and a white heaven. I mean, that's a given. It's just that, ignorance is not bliss. It's just not bliss. You don't go through life not realizing that certain things exist. You got to talk about it. You got to talk about it. You got to know, where the pitfalls are, and you got to be intelligent to be able to maneuver and to navigate in a world where you have potential areas where you can get wiped out. But being intelligent. It's nothing wrong with being intelligent and knowing what the score is.
To be
knowing
informed.
what the situation is.
To be informed.
Yeah, to be informed is to be forewarned.
Got you.
Remember that statement?
Yep. Totally understand that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I agree.
That's my whole thing.
I agree with being informed. Here's the rest of my story of what I said in terms of me dealing with racism. And this is just one time. I've dealt with racism in a plethora of ways where the Holy Spirit had to literally at that very moment deal with me. I lived in Minnesota for, I believe, almost about 2 years. And the company I worked for was IBM. IBM decided, hey, Larry, one of our contracts with Pillsbury General Mills, Pillsbury is going away, and General Mills is coming to buy, General Mills owned Pillsbury. And we had a contract with Pillsbury, and I had a good time at Pillsbury because, every morning I was getting strudels on my desk. I was having a good time with eating all these nice, lovely cakes and stuff like that they would put on your desk with hot coffee and chocolate milk and this, that, and the third. This was all free to me. So I was having a great time at General Mills. I did not want to leave General Mills. But anyway, they decided that they wanted to let us go, and IBM had to go. So my boss came to me and said, hey, wherever you want to go, if you want to stay here in Minnesota, you can, or wherever you want to go, I'm willing to send you to another place that you can spread your wings in IBM, because IBM is a large company that you can move anywhere you want to move. And I got so tired of living in Minnesota because Minnesota is freezing. And I was done with the winters, and I was so done with the fact that it snowed on my birthday, which was in May. And I'm like, it's May, why is it snowing on my birthday? So I was done. And I said to him, Robert, I'm ready to go. Send me where you want to send me. So I tried a couple areas, and Texas came up. And the way that it was set up was that they would send me out there for 2 weeks to get trained at a plant where they make a lot of the computers and things of that nature. I'll be trained over there, and I'll go there for 2 weeks, get trained. And during that 2 weeks, I was able to, they're relocating me so I can find a place to live. And I'll stay in a hotel for 2 weeks until I find a place to live. So they sent me out there. I get there in the morning. I met with my manager at the hotel, who's going to be my new manager at the hotel. I'll never forget this man. He comes and he looks at me, and he was shocked to see that it was a black guy he was talking to named Larry. All the time, he thought that Larry was a white guy because I may have a white name. And when he saw me, I saw his face. It was, hey, that the eyes rolled up, and he came. He asked me. I was at the making sure, because I didn't have a credit card to put my information on for me to have the place for 2 weeks, the hotel room. So he had to come with the IBM credit card to do so. And he immediately said, you supposed to be here for 2 weeks? I said, yes. He looked at me straight in my eyes and says, I'm giving you a weekend. Find a place within a weekend. Give the credit card to the lady and says he's only here for a weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If he doesn't find a place by Sunday, Monday, he's back to Minnesota. That's exactly what he said. And at me, I said, Mr. Wallace, it's supposed to be for 2 weeks. He says, I'm giving you a weekend. And he took the credit card when she was done and he walked away. I got to the room and this is what I did. I got on my knees and I'm talking about, I wouldn't do this at any given time. I knew that the only person that I can call on at that moment was Jesus. Because you give me a weekend. I got there Thursday morning. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm not going to be doing all this church on the Sabbath. And Saturday, I'm not going to be doing that. If I don't find a place by Sunday, I got to leave. So I said, Lord, you're the only one I can count on for me to do this. Help me find a place tomorrow. And I got off my knees. And instead of going to the company, to the office, I went to the company, to the office that morning. They let me out about midday in the afternoon. Texas was at 123 degrees. It was a heat wave during that time. And I got outside. I have just bus money. I went, I don't know where I was going. Nowhere around in Austin, Texas. I just got on the bus and I followed my way and I looked for a place. And this time, it was on newspapers. I'm looking for a place to live in on the newspapers. I circled a place and I told the bus, if this is where I'm going. He says, yes, you can get there and walk up to where you got to go. And I got there and I walked and walked and walked and I'm drenched with sweat. And I walked into an apartment complex because I needed some water. And the lady looked at me and I said, can I just stay here for the AC just a couple minutes? And she says, sure. She gave me a cup of water. She says, what are you doing walking in this heat? I said, I'm looking for an apartment. And she said to me, well, I'm so sorry. We're sold out here. We don't got anything here. And I said, well, I wasn't really coming to this place. I showed her where I was going. She says, that's another 2 blocks up. So you keep on going. Just stay here. When you get some rest, go ahead and go. So I did that. I went and I finally found the place. I looked at the place and it wasn't to my liking. I said, Lord, I don't know about this place, but they did have a place. And I said, well, you know what? Let me think about it. I'm going to come back. And I walked back. And as I was walking back, I went back to the same place I got the water because I needed some more water. And I said hi to the lady. I said, I just need to get another cup of water and just to cool off a little bit. And she looked at me. She goes, did you find a place? I said, well, I saw a place, but it wasn't really that great of a place. She goes, I just found out that somebody's leaving tomorrow. And would you like to take a look at it? We can show you the model. I said, sure. So they showed me the model. I really loved it. And she goes, if they move out tomorrow, can we call you? I said, sure. I'm looking for a place immediately. God worked it out that the person actually moved out and the apartment was cleaned and ready for me Friday evening. Okay? And when I got the place and I told the manager, Mr. Wallace, I got a place, he was shocked. From that moment on, that man did everything in his power for me to quit. He did everything in his power. I'm talking about, when I said racism, this guy was racist, pure. One day I'm driving, going to a place where Ku Klux Klan, during this time, the Klan was out there, okay? And I'm going to, and that's where he lives. He lives in that area. And he sent me there on purpose. And at the time, I had bond on my car. I had an accident, a little fender bender. And my dad and I fixed it, bumped it out, and we put the bond on it. We didn't paint over it yet. We just got the bond on it. And I'm driving, and I'm on a highway, and a cop pulls me over. The cop comes to my window and starts talking to me. I said, tells me about the bond, and that's what he pulls me over for. And I said, okay, well, I'll explain to him what's going on. He takes my information, license and registration. He goes back to his car. He calls me from his car. Mr. Nicholas, I need your manager's cell phone number. I said, my manager? What do you, he says, you work for IBM? I said, yes, I do. I need the number of your manager right now. So I didn't give it to him. I gave him my cell phone number. He calls it. I answer it. And that pissed him off even more. So he comes to the window and he comes back from his car to my window and he goes, you need to give me your manager's name and number right now. I said, I'm not gonna, I don't know who you are and why would you want my manager's number? He then writes on the ticket, he writes a ticket, and on the ticket, he puts my manager's name and why I didn't want to do what he asked me to do. He wrote on the ticket and gave me the ticket and says, this is for your manager. And I looked at him and I read this thing. I went and did the job I was supposed to do in this racist town with clans and everything. Come to find out, I didn't even know that this guy was part of a clan or not. I get back to the office and the first thing my manager asked while laughing, did you meet my friend? He called me and told me he met you. He was acting very indignant. Why don't you follow the rules? When he asks you for the number, give him the number. I said, he also gave me a ticket for you. He said, no, that was a note. You're paying this ticket. When I tell you, this man was racist against me. I'm the only black guy in his department that he's over. The only one. When finally this guy decided to retire, I was doing a job. I'm on the road. He calls me and says, I'm down in your area. I'm at the restaurant. You need to come talk to me before I retire. I need to see you. I said, I don't have the time. I'm sorry. He says, if you don't do it, well, there's going to be consequences. So I went to the restaurant, saw him in his face, and I said, Bill, this is the last time I'm going to talk to you. He said, this is not going to be the last time you see me, though. And he was right about it. Because guess who took his place after he retired? His daughter. And oh boy, did she have a list of things to do and a list of people to get rid of. And the only person she needed to get rid of was me. So that's just a short story of how this guy treated me from the time he met me. I mean, I have more I can say about this man, but he did not. I mean, when I tell you, and God, every time something was going on, God just, he directed my steps. Don't say nothing, Larry. Don't act silly. Don't act stupid. I know you want to, but don't do it. Don't let this man see you do this because that's what he wants. Eventually, what God did for me, while Bill Wallace was still my manager, God allowed him to make the mistake and send me to Atlanta. And when he sent me to Atlanta, I had a different boss out there who saw what I can do. And he said, Larry, when you get done with whatever you're doing, I want you to come work for me. And when they realized that I was starting to grow in Atlanta, because he was gone, that's when his daughter comes in, calls me from Atlanta to fire me. So when I tell you, it was God ordained, because the very same people that I used to work with in Atlanta, before she fired me, when I came back to Atlanta working for a whole new company, it was a lot of those people that I met with to start a business. So again, sometimes you go through that. God allows these things to happen to you. We cry racism. We cry hate. We cry a lot of that because it's happening to us. But God wants us to show us that he is going to elevate us above that. One more quick story. We moved out here in 21, Pastor Green. It was my buddy, Andrew, and my wife and myself. We worked so hard doing so much stuff that day. We decided to go grab something to eat in Dunlap. We went to a restaurant in Dunlap. This is during COVID. It was about 8 o'clock. We get there, the restaurant, and we walked into the restaurant. On the thing, it says this restaurant closes at 8:30. So we got there 30 minutes before it closes. We opened the door. Before us, a white person, a white couple went in before us, and we're behind the white couple. The hostess takes the menu, looks at the white couple, and says, I'm going to go sit you over here. Then looks at us and goes, we're closed. We're closed. And the kitchen is closed. Okay? So I looked around. I see these people working hard. And I said, where are they closed at? She goes, we're closed. Thank you. So we walked away. Okay. We walked out, went back to the truck. Before I was able to close my truck, the door of my truck, out comes another woman, begging with her hands clasped, please, please, please don't leave. Please, she was wrong. She had no business telling you that. She was wrong. Please, we've set a table for you guys. We're going to have the owner, the manager. They're going to take care of you guys. We're so sorry. We're so sorry. So I asked Andrew and I said, Ty, y'all want to go in there? They were like, yo, we hungry. We don't care. We walked back in there. They had a table set for us. They had everything laid out for us. The manager's taking care of us. And the very same person who was racist against us is cleaning now the salad bar area right next to us. Face is flushed. Could not believe her behavior could have gotten her fired. God elevated us again. We didn't act indignant. We didn't say anything about racism. We just walked out peacefully and God elevated us again. What I'm trying to tell you this, brothers and sisters, there are going to be times we're going to be tested for our religion, for our race, or even both. But God wants to elevate us. And these little tests that's going to come our way, if we cannot deal with the test of racism, how are we going to deal with the test of the Sabbath, which is going to be the most controverted issue in the very near future? If we can't deal with these things now, how then are we going to deal with what's going to come very soon? God is going to put us through different tests and trials just to get to the point where we can stand with a heart of love. At the end of the day, just like Christ got smacked in the face, just like he got whipped in the back, we're going to get the proverbial whipping, the proverbial slapping. And if we open our mouths in content, the devil's going to say, I got that person. So we have to be able to stand now for these little persecutorial trials, these little darts that's being thrown at us. The Bible tells us in James to stand. God is going to avenge all of this, all of it.
I'll say this, man. Racism is taught. The other day I was at the store getting some groceries, and there was this Caucasian lady. She was with another lady and her children. And we was in the bread aisle. I was looking for some bread. And the little children was like, hi, saying to me, saying, hi, hello, hi. And it sparked a conversation with me and the mother. I said, and I looked at her, I said, you see this? I said, why can't we as adults do this to each other? I said, you saying hi to me. I said, it's funny how little children, if you take them to the park, they don't care what skin color they are, they're going to play because they're not looking at race. But as an adult, when we get older, we don't speak to each other. You ever say hi to somebody and they just look at you and, like you're nothing. But it's not just white people, even with black people. You say hi to them, it's like, yo, you know me?
Right.
It's like, nah, it's just a form of respect, just being polite. These things are taught. Racism is taught, and it's the work of the devil. You know what I'm saying? It's the work of the devil. And at the end of the day, we all got stories, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We all got stories. Listen, I get it. Me, especially me being a black man, we get the short end of the stick because not only we got to deal with white police officers, or deal with the system, or deal with being racially profiled at our jobs or whatever. They even turned out women against us in certain cases.
In certain regards, yes. Yeah.
That's called a fake. Our women they're not in the homes no more. And then they want to get mad when you date outside the race. But they don't want to be submissive to the husband. But then again, you got some, not all, but you got some men who were raised by their mothers because there was no man in the house. I was one of them. My mother had 4 boys.
You didn't grow up a low T man though.
Huh?
You did not grow up a low T man.
Come on, man. And my mother tried her best, and she was hard on us because she felt that she had to show tough love because she didn't want us to run over her. You know what I'm saying? And she always had that tough love. It was never that nurture. And we missed that because she didn't want, because she felt she had to be tough. It's almost like that woman police officer feels she has to do more than the other men cops
Overcompensate.
because she feels that you're not going to respect her because she's a woman.
Yeah.
That's what we deal with in our neighborhoods. Whether she's a
Overcompensate.
black woman or a white woman, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And again, our women are turned against us. So now we got to fight at work. We got to fight on the streets. We got to fight when we get pulled over. But then we got to come home to a woman, not all, but most, because we got some. It's all how they were brought up. Today we have black women today who have a mouth on them, and they taught you as if you about to fight another man. They have a mouth on them. And then the minute, and I don't condone hitting a woman. I'm gonna put that out there. I don't condone that. But the minute that man put his hands on her, now she's the victim. The minute, this is the things I see in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
In my neighborhood,
I saw it.
In my
I see it with my own eyes. I see my mother, well, my youngest brother's father, good man. I saw it for no reason. I remember being 12, 13 years old with my youngest brother. He was just a baby at the time. I'm 10 years older than him. And I remember he came in the house and he smacked my mother on the butt and said, "Hey, girl, how you doing? How was your day?" She went off on him. Kicked him out for smacking her on the butt. As a grown man, when I think about it now, I'm just like, what?
That was for real, Jamal?
Huh?
That was for real?
Yeah, man. But listen, the point I'm trying to make is this, man. Satan moved the furniture in the sanctuary. God has a gospel order, right? It's God, the man, the woman, the children. Satan reversed the roles, man. I said this before. Satan, the children, the woman, the man get God out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you got the women being controlled by the children. Yeah, this is what, man, the minute a woman, the children do something to the woman, now the woman wants the man to do something. But the minute the child does something to the father, now here comes the mother to the rescue. Oh, yeah. We can't reprimand our children now.
Yeah,
because most women today.
A lot of that, Jamal, is now, causing the stem of our young men, and I say low T meaning low testosterone men, and high C women, high calorie women. We see that a lot now today because, again, is the degrading of, what a man's supposed to be, and that goes back to education. That goes back to that CRT stuff that we were talking about earlier.
But Larry,
okay.
A lot of the women in the house today are raising these boys without a father, and they try to raise boys on what they want their husband to look like.
Right. No, we agreeing with each other. But I'm saying that I call them low T men. They're raising low T men.
Now we wonder why today we got these weak boys today who can't even change a flat tire.
Low T men, low testosterone men.
They can't clean their bodies properly.
Low T men.
Yes, low T men.
That's it. Low T.
A woman, I don't care how hard you try. A woman cannot teach a man how to be a boy how to be a man. It's impossible.
Yeah, but that, again, that's the reason why, and I'm gonna let you go, Pastor Green. That's the reason why today we are seeing this thing. The easy way out is to call everything racism. That's the easy way out. That's the reason why we're all like, well, I don't have a chance. I can't make it. The white man keep me down, and that's the reason why we have all of that. Pastor Green.
Well, I'm surprised some of these women on the chat haven't reached through your computer and grabbed you around your neck and choked you to death.
You know what? Listen, man, let me tell you something.
I'm just saying, and I'm listening to all of this, and
I grew up in that house.
Yeah, I think that you got the devil. You got the devil in your home. The devil can be in your spouse. The devil can get in your kids. But when you come into a knowledge of Christ and Jesus becomes, you become empowered by the Lord. You can stand up. You can speak with the voice of authority, whether it's to your wife, whether it's to your child. Not to say that you got to be manhandling anybody, but look, the devil can possess anybody. Speak to the devil. You know, if a person is acting out of their face, if they're acting out of character, speak to the force that is in them, that's operating within them, and rebuke the devil in the name of Jesus. Stand your ground. You know, but my thing with my community, I mean, I lived in a predominantly dark community. Let me put it that way. I mean, you can look at me and see I'm not a thoroughbred black person. I mean, you can look at me and see that, you know, and I had a problem. I had a problem growing up, going to Center Avenue School there in Niagara Falls, New York. And most of my friends, you know, are jet black. And I looked the way I did. I got beat up by both sides. I got beat up by the blacks. And I got beat up when I crossed the bridge to go in the white community. They beat me up. So, I mean, how do you deal in a situation like that? You just get beat up. You try to hang with the blacks and you try to join in conversation with them, and you hear one black say one thing, and then you try to copy what they said, and all of a sudden you think you're better than I am.
Right.
Here it is. You're yellow. You this. You're that. You know. I mean, it's like a man without an island. I mean, where do you go? You're stuck in the middle, and you're getting beat up by both sides. I mean, it's a terrible position to be in. But you know, as far as I'm concerned, yes, I identify, and not just me, but I mean, you have some white people that identify with black people.
Yeah.
They really, really identify
Genuinely.
with black. You know, my former brother-in-law, his girlfriend was white, and she was an activist for black people. She was on the front lines. I mean, big time, speaking out about racism and all of that. So, I mean, it's an evil, and people speak out against it.
Right.
I mean, the person that I'm talking to, I mean, she is an advocate that stand up for the rights of black people, because in France, those folks
That's
can
a
be
whole different
very,
world.
very racist.
We thought Pastor Green, we think America is terrible. We think America is bad. Go outside of this country.
Yeah.
And you will find out true racism.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
England?
You think this is bad over here? This is over here. This is butter over here. This is you can see. This is easy stuff over here.
Yeah.
Trust me when I tell you, go to another country.
Yeah.
You will find out for yourself. Oh.
And they will not. You go to China. You go to China.
Portugal?
They're not careful about what they say to you. They will tell you exactly. They'll let you know. You don't have a place here.
Yeah. We went to Portugal, and I'm going to tell you something. Woohoo! Man, I almost got myself into 2 fights. I mean, 2 fights in Portugal. Okay? I'm telling you, this woman just got on me. I mean, we were all taking a walk through the castle, a tour. And she wasn't even my tour guide. And she's in my back. All right? Just didn't like me. And I walked up to her and yo, what's your problem with me? She's on the phone. That's my wife. I walked up like, yo, what's my wife, baby, don't. Because I'm telling you, I was ready for it. I wanted to smoke. On the plane, I wanted to smoke. When this guy decided he wanted to touch my stuff, I was on edge. When you leave America, it's a whole lot different. It's a whole lot different. Yeah. Shout out to my cousin Bruce B on Chris B on the line with us tonight.
But Larry, you know, I just want to say this, man. My whole point of me saying what I was saying was this was the work of the devil, man.
Mm-hmm.
This is the work of the devil, man. And so, you know, we look at race sometimes and we get angry when we see these things. And we have a right to feel that way but we're not the only ones being mistreated. Because we had the Chinese that enslaved the Japanese. We had the
Japanese enslaved. The Japanese were the ones that enslaved everybody.
Yeah.
Then you had the
Koreans. I made the mistake when I was over there in Korea.
Come a little closer, Pastor.
I made the mistake when I was in Korea. I can't tell a Korean from a Chinese person. I can't. And And no, I can't tell a Korean
From a Chinese.
from a Japanese.
Of Japanese, okay.
And when I was on the plane, I referred to this Korean as Japanese. And he became so vehemently angry with me. And then he explained to me the history of what happened and how the Japanese came over to Korea and they raped their women. They took all, he says, if you notice, there's no large trees in Korea because the Japanese came in, chopped down all of their trees and transported the wood over to Japan. And so he just went down the line. So he says, but when you refer to me as Japanese, he said, that's why. So there's a lot of racism. There's a lot of bitter hatred.
Yeah. All over
one
the world,
person
man.
for the other. That's the devil.
That's the point I'm trying to make. That we're not. Yes, we got the short end of the stick out of everybody in the world, but somebody been enslaved to somebody. It ain't just the blacks that has been enslaved in slavery. You got to remember, and nobody talks about this part about slavery, that we were sold off by our own people. People don't talk about that part. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the Europeans went into Africa, took us, made us get on ships, and then brought us to North America. And no, we were sold by our own people.
But they wouldn't have been sold if it had been for the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church was benefiting from all of that. They were the ones that was talking to these bourgeois, black leaders and saying, look, this is what we need. And so they were making money. They were making money on the slave trade.
Yeah, that's right. And they were Sabbath keepers in Africa. They kept the Sabbath, man. This was the history. And so we were sold and bought here. You know what I'm saying? And so at the end of the day, man, all this, Satan's he's behind all of this. Sometimes we gotta look at whose hand is in their back. If it's Jesus' hand or is it the devil's hand, man? Right. People, man, I mean, even in our church, man, we see segregation today, man. Segregation has not gone away. It hasn't. We still see segregation today in our church. We got the black churches, we got the white churches. It was. Do you know? I'm a member of State Line. I've been a member of State Line for 12 years. Okay, that's my church. Dr. O's my pastor. He's my best friend, but he's also my pastor. Okay, when COVID came in 2020, it was the black churches calling him. All the black churches in State Line's not even in the black conference. They're in the white conference. They're not even in the black conference. It was all the black churches that was calling Dr. O, like, hey, shut the church down. Thank God for the laws of Alabama. Thank God. And I said, Dr. O, don't you shut them doors. If it was just you and Abraham, the message got to keep going. And that's how the Sunday Law update blew up. It was during COVID. The first Sunday Law update was me. On the panel was me, Larry. I think it was my brother. Shabal?
Nah, it was just me. It was me, you, Marcus, and a plethora of other people.
Yeah, Marcus Mason. Yeah, that was the very first one.
Yeah.
And after that, it just took off. But it was the black churches that was telling them. Listen, they was giving had State Line been in the black conference, they would have got Dr. O out of during COVID.
Oh yeah.
You would not be hearing Dr. O right now had he been in the black churches.
That's true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
I'm sorry. How you been in the black conference?
Yeah.
The black conference. It was the white conference. The white conference that State Line's in. And
I don't, black conferences, white conferences, all of that. I don't see anything that is evil. I don't see anything bad about that. Birds of a feather flock together. I mean, there's a particular style of worship that resonates more with me. I mean, I go to the church for the purpose of getting the blessed. I'm more cerebral than I am on the emotional side, but I grew up in churches that, express themselves a little bit more than in a predominantly white church, but
I think we've all,
I mean, it's okay. It's okay. But if there was a predominantly black church in the community, more than likely, I think I would feel a little bit more comfortable in that particular church. But I can,
you can maneuver.
I can maneuver.
You can maneuver.
I can maneuver. I mean, when I went to Anderson, Alabama, I didn't care what church it was. I just wanted an Adventist church. And I went to the first Adventist church I saw in Anniston, Alabama. And I was greeted by some hostess people, and they pointed me to where the black church was. I was highly offended by that.
See, that's my point.
I was highly offended by that.
That's
I
why I
went
keep saying what
trying to
I'm saying.
find the black church. I never found it. I said, let's go back to the white church. I told my wife, we're going back to the white church. And so we went back, had worship. It was one of the driest services I have experienced in my life.
But Larry, that's my point. Segregation never left, man. Look,
we do that to ourselves, though. We do that to
segregation.
ourselves. Yeah, we do that to ourselves, man. Look, we were in Iceland, and I said, you know what? Let's just we go to this church. It doesn't make a difference. Look, when I found there were black people in Iceland, I said, wow, there are black people in Iceland. I couldn't believe it. But then again, I'm like, we got to be everywhere, just the same as anybody else, right? It was just we're not a big population. We have a big population in Iceland. So when we went to church, we just went to a church. We didn't care whether it was black or white. We just ended up going to a church. And listen to this. It was the church that we needed for the time, because the sermon was on point. That was a sermon that was needed to be heard, and we heard it in English with the little thing on our head, as they interpreted for us, because it was all in Icelandic language.
But this thing goes all the way back. Even a person I interned under when I was at the Bethel Church in Brooklyn, New York. I mean, E.T. Mims, he was the pastor, and we were talking about Oakwood, and I was sharing with him what happened when Kenneth Cox came and did a series at the First Church of Huntsville, which was a predominant. I'm not talking about the Black First Church.
Yeah, I didn't know there was two different ones.
Oh yeah, there's a white First Church.
I learned that a month ago.
Oh yeah, and so I was telling them what happened when all the blacks wanted to hear Kenneth Cox, and they had the meeting over there, and those folks, they weren't happy that all these black kids from Oakwood was coming to their meeting. And E.T. Mims shared with me when he went to school way back in the 30s or wherever he went to, he said that a bunch of students decided, we're going to that church. And, because he knew that there was some racism going on. He said when they got there, they were met by the elders, and the elders said, you ain't coming in this church. Says every bullet got the word nigger written on it. That's what he told me.
Oh yeah. I was there for that conversation. That's when we were at lunch.
Yeah,
we were having lunch at church with the at Pastor Q's church, right?
Yeah.
We were having yeah.
That's what he said. He said that's what was his experience. They were out there with guns.
And this was an Adventist church.
This is an Adventist church.
Right.
The First Church of Huntsville.
Right.
But I go even deeper, Pastor Green. When I read Spirit of Prophecy, and you guys can go read this, when Sister White told during when she was telling them that the Civil War was coming, and she told all the white Christians, do not get involved with the Civil War because it's not of God.
Right.
And they went anyway and got involved with the Civil War. All of them died.
Mm-hmm.
All those SDA, the Seventh-day Adventist Christians that got involved with the Civil War, all died. And Ellen White told them not to get involved with that because it wasn't the Lord. I said, listen, God says, the Bible says God is the God of the living, not the dead. I'm saying, how can you serve God in the grave?
So you're making a parallel with all the Adventists that sided with Donald Trump?
No,
this is something altogether.
I don't understand how that comes into play. But anyhow, I mean,
well, it's politics.
That's just
it's politics.
That's just what it is. But we're gonna come to a close, guys. We got been here for a little while, but just to wrap this up, brothers. The mere purpose of this is to really show that we are living in the last days, and Matthew chapter 24 clearly lays it out that nations will war against nations. And that word nations is Greek for the word race. We'll see this thing more and more, becomes more prevalent. We know that we're living in the last days. And the reason why I keep saying that's not our fight is because although we can do multiple things at the same time, we want to be very careful on how we add this to our mission of the third angel's message that divides more than it unites. If it's going to divide...
Real quick, I say one more thing real quick. The Lord has put it on my mind. Let's not be a William Foy. How many of y'all know who William Foy is? William Foy.
He's the black guy.
Yeah, William Ford was the black guy who was supposed to have been the
Had the
prophet,
prophetic message.
but he was afraid before Ellen White. God came to William Ford first, and William Ford was afraid because they probably would have killed him, but he didn't trust God. Well,
Right.
try to kill him, but he didn't trust God. The point I'm trying to make is let's not be the William Ford today when we're dealing with racism. Let's trust the Lord, and He's going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
So that's my last word to you. Let's trust God and not be the William Ford, because he was supposed to be the prophet, and then God took it from him and gave it to Ellen White. That's why we got Sister White today as our prophetess. It was supposed to be William Ford.
But you got to keep in mind that even Ellen White has black blood in her family.
Yes, she is, and that's right. Ellen White does have black blood in her. She's not 100% white.
Yeah. You know, just like they shot the noses off the Sphinx, you can look at her nose and see that, you know, she got characteristics, you know.
That's right.
Because the nose tells a lot of things, about a person's ethnicity. But it doesn't matter whether she's mixed or black or white. That's not it. It's the message. It's the message. That's what we got to keep in mind. We got to, all of this, business. One group is better than another group. I don't subscribe to that. The only thing that I'm talking about, Larry, is that just like to be forewarned is to be forearmed, not in the sense of doing like Peter and taking your sword and chopping off Malcolm's ear. I'm not talking about that. Jesus says that my kingdom is not of this world. We have a fight, but it is on a spiritual level of battling. And you cannot fight fire with fire. You cannot use the weaponry of Satan in this warfare. You got to use water. Water puts out fire, not fire against fire.
Mm-hmm.
Use the water of the gospel, and let that be your weapon. To put on the whole armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, to gird up your loins, all of these things. These are our weapons. You show love. You show love. Love is a way that the Bible says you will heap hot coals on a person.
That's it.
With love.
That's it.
And vengeance, God says, is mine.
That is it.
God says vengeance is mine. You don't try to do God's job. You will just aid Satan in destroying somebody that Jesus shed his blood for.
That is it. You're on point right there, my brother. You're on point right there. I'm going to share something with you guys. I think that's what I was trying to share here. Sister White's activism for black causes in her senior citizens years clinches the certainty in some minds that White was black. And I think we can kind of like let it go from right there, right? We can say, you know what? We had a great conversation. I think that's what we can do. Brothers and sisters, we really want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. I think this was a conversation that got a lot into it, and what came out of it, the end result, was love. That's the end result, was love. And I think that's the key that we need to have going forward. That's the only way that we can get into God's kingdom. The Bible says, if you want to be a disciple of mine, love your brothers. Brotherly love. We can't be with God and Jesus and we don't love our neighbor. We don't love our brothers as ourselves. With that being said, brothers and sisters, we're going to thank you. As the question always goes, how long will you halt between two opinions? If God be God, serve God. If God be Baal, serve Baal. But as for us, in our homes and our houses, we're going to continue to serve the Lord. Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for joining us on this special Saturday night podcast. And again, we'll guys, by God's grace, see you next week. Have a good night.